Two young people are walking through the forest. The girl is holding a bundle with a baby close to her. They sit down, and the young man asks if she is going to abandon the child. The girl sighs, wondering how many times she has to say it. The child is cursed, and they cannot abandon it. The girl replies that black hair and black eyes are just a coincidence. The young man exclaims that the black color is proof that he is cursed. They glance at the boy sleeping peacefully. If they raise this child, who knows what will happen to their village? The young man apologizes for shouting. He explains that he also loves this child, even though it is difficult, but who knows what will happen to their village. The girl hugs the child close. The young man is right. It is the king's order. Holding the boy tightly, she mutters that she is very sorry. The magical, misty forest. There is a high concentration of magic here due to the thick fog. Because of the monsters that live here and the terrible visibility, this forest is considered very dangerous. Only a few dare to come here, except for illegal traders and adventurers hunting monsters and their belongings. The young man, Tuner, explains that they have reached a point that no one has ever gone beyond. Will they go further? The man, Karma, turns to his companions, Sane and Teezies, asking how much magic and supplies they have left. Sane replies that he has about 60% of his magic left and a couple of healing potions. Tizzes has 70%. If they share all their supplies, they will last for about 3 weeks. Karma nods and suggests continuing the search. He asks everyone to remain vigilant. They don't know much about this place. If they see anything suspicious, they should report it to him immediately. A glow appears in the darkness. They notice a small monster, but note that it is not dangerous. The adventurers also see a heart-shaped fruit next to it. Adventurers returning from this forest often carried this fruit with them. The young man has heard that it accounts for 20% of the country's budget. The monster growls and tries to attack them. They ask Tumura to cover them from behind. Tumor agrees. Tissus wants to destroy it. She directs wind magic at it, a wind cutter. The monster makes some sounds. Sign is asked to watch the fruit, as everything will be in vain if they lose it. The young man shouts for Karma to attack that spot, and he and Saiyan will help him. Karma attacks the monster. Then Saiyan and Tumor use magic to attack, a quick arrow and an air explosion. The double attack flies at the monster. The monster makes some strange sounds and falls. Karma cautiously asks if they succeeded. Tumor sums up that the monster shows no signs of life. That means they won, and the fruit is intact. Well done, everyone. They already have 3 such fruits. Tissus can't even imagine how much money they will get for this. Each of these fruits is worth 20% of the country's budget. But still, they decide not to take any more risks and return. Suddenly, they stumble upon more dangerous monsters. Suddenly, Tumor hears something and asks everyone to be quiet. Someone notes that he has very good intuition. Tumor turns toward the voice and hears again that he also has excellent reflexes. Then the voice notes that Margaret does not seem to be here. The adventurers ask who it is. Suddenly, they notice a dark-haired, dark-eyed young man on one of the tree branches. They ask in astonishment, "Is he cursed?" They notice the boy's black hair and black eyes. He is definitely cursed. But the cursed don't live long after birth. Maybe he just dressed up or something like that? However, Tiziz notes that it is impossible for him to have come to the forest dressed like that. It's not normal. The young man draws attention to the monster and asks if they killed it. The young man continues, saying that they couldn't have killed it without good skills in magic, so they must be skilled adventurers. Karma nods. They are A-rank adventurers. They are here to take the precious fruit. The young man folds his arms across his chest and declares that this is his territory and they are vandals here. Therefore, he orders them to leave the fruit and get out of here. Then he will spare their lives. Tumor indignantly calls out to him. Tumor yells at him to tell them what to do. They fought fairly to take this fruit for themselves. The others agree with him. There are 4 of them and he is alone. The young man will beg for mercy himself. Why should they listen to him? They are right here. The young man notes that they mean to say that these fruits are more precious to them than their lives. Tumor becomes even angrier. They think the young man is just a common bandit. The adventurers warned him not to get involved with them. They feel sorry for killing him, so they'll just beat him up and take him to the guild. The young man watches them for a while, then remarks that they have chosen death. He begins to utter words. The young man continues to read the spell. Karma covers his eyes with his hand. Is this young man using a summon? Karma orders everyone to attack while he is chanting the spell. Sane immediately extends her magic staff forward to interfere. Tumor also uses a quick arrow. The arrow hits the young man squarely in the stomach, but nothing happens to him. He doesn't even dodge the attack, continuing to read the spell. A spirit appears next to the young man. The young man in the hat yells for everyone to hide. Deadly hellfire. He doesn't know if calling the spirit will work, but it should work on the summoner. Sane uses the spell. Flames engulf the young man. He smirks, after all. The guy wasn't that strong. Now he's a piece of roasted meat. Tz's uncertainly addresses him, but Sane didn't want to kill him. Tuna replies that the young man was able to dodge his attacks. Sane did everything right. Karma suggests that they slowly back away now. Suddenly, they hear a strange sound. They turn to the place where the young man had been standing. The fog from the spell dissipates, and the adventurers stare in that direction in bewilderment. The spirit sadly tells the young man that the trees have burned down. They will no longer be restrained. Karma concludes that there is a talking spirit nearby who is able to neutralize the flames. Is he a high-level person? The young man asks. And so what? The spirit declares that the adventurers tried to destroy their home and killed their family members. They will definitely not leave here alive. Tumor turns around in shock. Karma shouts that they won't be able to defeat them. He asks Tizis to use the teleportation stone. They need to leave immediately. Karma grits his teeth, glad he bought this stone before going into the forest. This spirit is not in their power category. They need to report him to the guild. Tizis takes out the stone, but doesn't have time to finish his thought. They hear a voice declaring that it will not let them go. The dark-haired young man's hand passes through Tizis's chest. The other adventurers look on in shock at what is happening. The young man pulls his hand out and takes the teleportation stone. As he thought, the people who come here will surely take this stone with them. The adventurers call out the name of their dead comrade in shock. Sen, her eyes wide open, does not notice the spirit that has appeared behind her. She whispers that Sen likes to play with fire, but does she know what it means to burn alive? The spirit promises to scrape his soul onto the path of suffering for what he has done. Let him burn to ashes. The spirit uses fire. The remaining adventurers scream in despair. Sane is engulfed in a huge flame. The flames subside, leaving only the spirit and Sane's charred body. She declares that he will no longer be able to resist. Sana is still alive and moans quietly in pain, begging for help. He desperately reaches out his hand toward his companions. Tuner screams in despair. A young man appears next to him and asks him not to scream so hopelessly. They pretended to be heroes, and now they're not even ready to die? Tuner waves his knife, shouting for him to get away from him. He swings the knife close to the young man's face, but he misses. The dark-haired man grabs Turner's hand, which is clutching the knife. Tuner yells for him to let go, but the dark-haired man squeezes his wrist and lifts him off the ground. Turner's body gradually weakens. Karma falls to her knees in despair. She asks why the young man killed them, even when they lost their fighting spirit. The dark-haired man asks in return why they killed a tree that wasn't trying to harm them. The spirit notes that they were hunting for fruit, and it didn't matter to them whether the tree was alive or dead. Karma cries out in despair, "Is it wrong to kill monsters?" The young man folds his arms across his chest. He agrees that the strongest defeat the weakest. Anyone who harms his family will not leave alive. If they had taken the fruit with them, even more adventurers would have come here. They consider adventurers a threat because they do everything they can to take what they are looking for. He offered them to leave, but the adventurers did not listen and attacked. They glance at each other. The spirit replies that they cannot just stand by and watch them destroy their homes, and Karma will soon return to her friends. The spirit uses magic and asks him not to resist, then she will make it painless. After everything, the spirit turns to the young man, William, and informs him that she has burned all the bodies of the adventurers. William smiles and thanks his sister Hinori. He asks her to go home without him, but she refuses. When he asks her why, Hinori replies that she hasn't been alone with him in a long time. She asks him to go home together, as if they were on a date. William agrees with a smile. He bends his arm at the elbow and asks permission to accompany her home. Hinori immediately hugs his arm, unable to believe that Will said that. With smiles on their faces, they walk to where they are expected. A small palace building. A blonde girl is sleeping in one of the rooms. After a while, someone calls out to her, forcing her to wake up. This girl's name is Satya. The girl with dark hair tips apologizes for interrupting her rest. Satya replies that everything is fine and asks what happened. The girl reports that the spirit who is awake has found a human child. Satya asks in surprise. The girl nods again, saying they also saw two people at the gate leading to the forest. Anyone who finds him can do whatever they want with him, but killing such an innocent child is too much. So they said they would bring the child here, and then Lady Satya herself would decide. Satya immediately offers to go. They walk forward and suddenly hear a cry. It is the excited cry of the girls who have surrounded the child. They notice that he is smiling and that his fingers are tiny. Everyone is standing in line to hug him. A girl shouts that she told them to be quiet until Milady arrives. One of the girls exclaims that she can't help herself, the baby is so cute. She offers the girl to hold him, and she awkwardly agrees. She takes the baby in her arms, and he immediately yawns sweetly. She immediately exclaims with delight. Everyone is completely captivated by the boy's cuteness. The girl with dark hair tips apologizes to Satya for all this. However, she notices the strangely touched expression on Milady's face. Sati calls the child angelic. The girl exclaims, reminding her that he is human. However, Sati is suddenly enveloped in a dark aura. She declares that this child cannot be human. After all, this child is just an angel disguised as a human. The girl is stunned. Is Milady in her right mind? Satyu smiles and says that they will take care of this child. Her words make the girl exclaim in shock. Satyu is asked to reconsider this decision because no one else wants to take care of the child. She thinks about it. However, suddenly 5 girls express their desire to take care of this child. Satya interrupts them with a wave of her hand. She declares that she will be the one to take care of him. The girls immediately exclaim that the Empress is too busy for that. The girls continue to fight for custody while Satya weeps resignedly. Suddenly, the girl with dark hair tips bangs her fist on the table in irritation. If each of them wants to take care of him so badly, why don't they all do it? This child's life is not something to be toyed with. If the girls want this so badly, then they should approach it with all seriousness. The girls agree. They can teach him together. With them, he can become a well-rounded person and learn a lot. They need to balance his knowledge and skills, which means they can teach him arithmetic and military arts. And they must also teach him tolerance. Satya looks at the child tenderly. Now, William returns home, passing by the chatting girls. They jump up with a smile when they see that William and Hinori have returned. They greet the girls with smiles, still holding hands. The girls greet them in return. One of them asks if they're on a date. Hinori proudly smiles and says it's because he asked her out first. And the spirit allowed him to put his hand on her chest, and Will seems to have enjoyed it. The girls squeal with delight. William sighs with an indulgent smile. In fact, she put his hand there herself. He's going to go and tell his mother, so they say goodbye. Hinori is going to tell the whole village about his brave deed and his date. Will waves her off and asks her not to exaggerate. When the young man approaches the building, the little creatures greet him. They immediately declare that they want to play with him. However, William replies that he must talk to his mother first. He promises that after that they will definitely play. The creatures cheerfully exclaim, "William promised." He says goodbye to them, then greets the young men, and finally enters the hall. Will's servant reports that he has removed the uninvited guests. Satyam immediately runs from the throne with tears in her eyes and rushes to Will. She hugs him tightly. She asks him many questions about his condition and asks him to tell her if he is feeling unwell. Will reassures her that everything is fine. He has destroyed all traces around the village. She gently cups his face in her hands. Satyam is glad that he has returned safe and sound. If Will had returned wounded, in that case, she would have gone mad. But the spirits had to deal with it, so Will would be safe and she wouldn't have to worry. One of her servants asks her to keep her composure, regardless of how worried she is about Will. After all, he has only told half the story. Satyasiga sighs and returns to her throne. She praises Will for his good work. If the adventurers discover their village, they will attack immediately. People are cruel, and there are many of them. It is not difficult to imagine what harm they would bring to her children. And Will prevented that. The young man tries to say that he is not worthy of such honor, but Satya adds that she will ask him for more details later, and for now he should rest. Will nods and thanks her. His report is finished. Then he addresses her as his mother. She welcomes him home with a tender smile. He also greets Jenny and Minnie, who are standing on either side of the Empress. They greet him as well. This is his family, his friends, and his village, and he won't let anyone lay a finger on them. Night. Smoke rises from the fire. People sit around it. A harnessed horse stands nearby. A bound girl sits not far away. The man smiles. Luck is on his side. Who would have thought he could catch an elf? They worked hard for this and are eagerly awaiting their reward. The elf girl remains stubbornly silent. This time they hit the jackpot. They will be paid as they should be. Someone worries that they will not get out of the forest alive, but he is reassured that they will take the usual route. The man hits another bound girl, saying that it was a mistake to take her with them. She tearfully begs for forgiveness. The elf girl screams about the man's promise that if she doesn't resist, she won't be hit. However, he claims that he only kicked her, not hit her, because the elf girl is expensive. Unlike the elf girl, she is a bad product. No one will care if she dies. A woman her age should at least have a good figure. No one needs a weakling like her. The man kicks the girl again. The elf curses through clenched teeth. The man declares that he could have simply sold the girl into prostitution. After that, the elf apologizes. She looks at the girl next to her while the lilies continue to talk. Suddenly, the draft girl hears a noise in the bushes. She turns around and notices a snake, the Empress's castle. There is a strange crackling sound, a rumbling, and then there is an explosion. William rushes forward. The young man trains in combat with the spirit. He attacks her with a sword, and she blocks his blow with magic. William grunts in satisfaction and dodges her attack, immediately ending up behind Hinori and blocking her movements. The girl tries to escape again, but then realizes it's useless. She raises her hands in resignation. He has managed to stop her. She flies away in annoyance. The spirit has lost again. She can't believe William jumped over her fiery plumage. William explains that she always keeps her distance from her opponents. He thought that if he could get close enough, she would panic and use her spell. The girl folds her arms across her chest. She knew, but she is surprised that William decided to take the risk. Now she often loses to him and feels that she cannot help him, even though she is his sister. William strokes her head. Despite everything, she is still his sister. Besides, how can he protect her if he is still too weak? She has always protected him. Now it's his turn to repay her in kind. William continues to stroke her head, but a voice nearby remarks on what lovebirds they are. Will greets her and remarks that she was the one who taught him to express his feelings through words. The girl laughs. He's damn right. Looking at him with Hinori, she's already starting to feel jealous. She apologizes with a smirk. Hinori exclaims in embarrassment how long she has been there. The girl apologizes for interrupting the date, but she was going to borrow Will for a minute. Will asks if everything is okay. She replies that it is. Will knows the mercenaries who are invading the forest. They usually just ignore them because they pose no threat. But in this case, they have captured an elf who has a contract with the spirits. If the spirit knows where their village is, then the elf surely knows too. This will be a serious problem. It seems they are resting on the edge of the forest, and it is unknown when they will invade the village. They need to destroy them here and now, so Will must be ready. He must summon her as soon as he gets there. Will suggests going there together. She states that it is obvious she will not receive his warmth if he does not summon her. Hinori agrees with her. Their power is determined by how much love he has given them. Will clarifies, but if they go there together, won't it be a double date? The girls exclaim in shock. Hinori folds her arms across her chest. She hadn't thought of that. Maybe it's not such a bad idea, but she wants her body to be filled with his magic. The blonde notes that Will is a genius for coming up with this idea in literally a split second. It's incredible of him. Will asks them to stop fooling around, saying he will go out there and see what they are doing and later call her so her sister can rest. He turns to Hinori and asks her to report this to their mother. Hinori asks the blonde to take care of Will. She nods and promises not to let anyone hurt Will. Will sets off. Gradually, the sun rises. A wagon with people is traveling along the road. Sitting in a tree, the young man notices this cart. There are 12 mercenaries and 2 hostages, and what appears to be the leader of this group. He notices a man who he thinks is the leader of the group. There are quite a few of them, and if even one of them escapes, it will be a problem. If Will attacks here, the people living near the forest may suspect something. The spirit with whom the elf has made a contract probably still cannot use its magic. In this state, the spirit recognizes the village, so the best solution would be to lure them deeper into the forest. He sighs. After all, they are mercenaries. There is no doubt that they are doing this for money. If he fails, he will have to kill them all. Will knows it's for the sake of his village, but he doesn't like killing people. The mercenaries notice someone on their way. They shout at those in the wagon to prepare for battle. The prisoners tense up. The young man peacefully raises his hands, saying there is no need. With an awkward smile, he says he is not an enemy. The man notes with surprise that he is a rejected child. The mercenaries discuss among themselves, saying that there can be no rejected child in this forest. He is just some boy who dyed his hair to scare people. They just want to scare him. They point their weapons at the young man. They don't care who he is, so let him tell them what he wants. The boy saw them crossing this foggy forest. Since he saw them, does he really think they will just let him go? The mercenaries declare that they won't let him go just like that. The young man smiles. He has a proposal for them that is related to their work. The mercenaries laugh, even if it costs him everything he has in his pocket. The man smirks when he hears the proposal. The man orders several mercenaries to surround the boy. If he moves, they are to kill him. So, the man listens. If Will asks something stupid, he will die. And also, if he doesn't like the boy's proposal, he will also say goodbye to his life. The boy nods. He opens his bag, which is filled with many different sparkling jewels. The mercenaries are stunned, their mouths agape. Will suggests ending this and checking his bag. The man pauses for a moment, orders them to continue watching the boy, and instructs Egil to check what is inside the bag. The old man replies that there is nothing suspicious here, only jewelry and gold. The man is stunned. Their elf is worth just as much, so he asks what the boy's offer is. The leader orders his companions to put away their spears. Will thanks him and tells him his name. He introduces himself as an adventurer and summoner. He also asks for his name. The man's name is Reed, and he is a slave trader. Next to him are mercenaries whom he pays to be his bodyguards. The young man smiles and asks permission to call him Mr. Reed. Smiling, he asks if Mr. Reed is interested in spirits. The man asks again in surprise. Will continues, saying that he is interested in the perfume used by the summoner. This time, Will has come to the forest because he has managed to obtain some information. According to this information, high-ranking spirits dwell here. The man looks at the boy incredulously. Will smiles, clearly having piqued his interest. The young man wants to sign a contract with as many high-ranking spirits as possible, but the monsters that live around him constantly interfere. Will would be too vulnerable while signing the contract, so he asks to be protected during the process. He can also offer a bonus. As a bonus, after he signs the contract, what will become of this village is up to them to decide. The man's eyes widen. So all these treasures are the rewards for this proposal. It seems that Will do everything possible to conclude the contract, but there is something that Reed still does not understand. Why wouldn't Will's fellow recruiters accompany him? After all, it would be much cheaper. Will nods, he thought so too. Has the man heard of the A-rank team called Ishinaki Maken? Rumor has it that they still haven't returned from that forest. People are becoming fearful and have therefore rejected his request. He had no choice but to enter the forest alone, but he couldn't safely sign the contract, so he decided to return and accidentally met them on the way. This is the forest that is said to have taken out an entire A-rank team, and they are here alone. And, of course, the mercenaries would be cautious. After all, this forest is dangerous. Just so they know, he has a reliable partner. Alone, the young man can handle 2 or 3 monsters. If they want, he can prove it to them. Reed agrees and asks him to prove it. The young man clears his throat and nods. He utters the words of the spell and summons the yellow-throated snake, Zemian Garcinia. A moment later, a fair-haired girl appears before him. The man exclaims in surprise, "Is this the spirit?" Will replies that she is his partner. She is a spirit of the earth, and her name is Radio. The men watch the girl with admiration. Suddenly, they hear spells being cast. One of the hostages has managed to escape and is attacking them with water magic. Then the magic flies towards Will. Radia blocks the attack. Will does not understand what this power is. It seems that the girl has a good relationship with the spirit. The elf exclaims indignantly, "How dare he? How dare the young man tell people about the village? Doesn't he know what will happen if its existence is revealed?" Will sighs. If she had kept her cool, everything would have ended smoothly. Will exclaims that he doesn't care because he's signing a contract, and the only thing he needs to consider is whether it's profitable for him or not. That's all. The girl clenches her teeth indignantly. He notes that it is pointless to talk to her about it. Reed yells at him to grab the girl without hurting her. She is his precious commodity. The mercenary promises the young man a reward for this. Will replies that he doesn't need his reward, but he's right. The request requires compensation, so the reward will accompany him until he manages to sign the contract. The man immediately agrees. The man is counting on him. Will smiles when he hears his promise. The elf curses him loudly and tries to attack again. However, this time, the young man asks Radia to act. She uses a ground prison. An earth prison appears immediately. She locks the girl inside. The elf screams that it's impossible. How could she cast the spell so quickly? The young man turns to Radia. They won't be able to take her if she uses the cage, so he asks to tie the prisoner's hands and feet. Radia nods and summons an earth bond. The elf begs the girl not to listen to him, and then asks the young man in despair what he has done to her. In the end, the girl's mouth is tied, and Will approaches Reed. The man sincerely thanks Will. Reed is surprised that she managed to break the handcuffs. Will asks if she's the owner of the spirit. Her spirit is strong enough to break the handcuffs, but Radia is stronger than her. They shake hands, and as the man promised, he will accompany Will. The man smiles. They have only just met, but he already thinks they will make good business partners. Will asks to talk about it later. The man turns to his companions and asks them to treat Will as a savior and with respect. Once he signs the contract, they will be his companions. The mercenaries are eager to work with Will. No one can stop them as long as Will and the spirit are with them. Finally, the man wants to do something. He turns to the hostages. He approaches the elf. Reed looks at her with resentment. She wanted to escape, so she had better be prepared to pay for it. After the trip is over, he will let everyone decide how to punish her. If she is angry, let her be angry at herself for doing something so stupid. The girl trembles slightly. Reed laughs loudly. The girl lowers her gaze. They ride together in the wagon. The mercenaries talk among themselves, while Will sits silently. They continue along the path. Reed notes that there are no signs of monsters, perhaps because of the spirit of the beast. Finally, Will concludes that they have arrived at their destination. All the mercenaries get out of the carts and stand behind Will. Reed smiles, knowing that once he signs the contract, he will become rich thanks to his power. Will announces that he is beginning the contract ritual. Everyone here must be on guard. Everyone stands around Will, forming a circle. The man stands near the wagon with a smirk. Will turns to him and calls out to Radia. Then he mercilessly orders her to kill everyone. A moment later, a huge snake appears next to them. It devours one mercenary after another. Radia tells the snake that she can go back to sleep after she's done. Then the snake curls up into a ball. Reed watches in shock. Reed is still stunned. He doesn't understand what that was. What did Will do? The young man turns toward him, and Reed remembers his order to kill everyone. But that can't be. Did Will plan to kill them from the very beginning? Reed trembles with fear when he sees the gaze directed at him. The young man continues to stare at him intently, and after a while, the man falls down dead. Will is slightly surprised. Will asks in surprise if the man is really dead. Radia approaches him and replies that it seems he was frightened of him. Radia smiles and remarks that she likes the look on Will's face. The young man sighs, not caring what other people think of him. But if his sister says so, then everything is fine. At home, Will would not show such an expression to everyone. Radia is glad to hear this. They smile at each other. They notice the hostages. The elf resolutely shields the other girl with her body. She becomes even more embittered when the young man approaches. He says that everything is fine. He apologizes for having to deceive her and asks her not to do anything foolish. Will is going to untie her now. The girl is surprised. After a while, Radia frees her. The elf immediately picks up the girl next to her. She sadly shares that those scumbags insulted her. They said she was damaged goods simply because her body proportions were different from those of other draves. Will is silent for a moment, then picks up the girl. He declares that he will take the girl to their village. There she will have some restrictions, but it is still better than leaving her here. He also declares that the elf is coming with them, and he is not asking for her consent. If she refuses, they will have to kill her here and now. The girl grimaces awkwardly but agrees to go with them. Will asks Radia to take care of the elf and the corpses. It will be bad if the girl's wounds are not treated immediately. Therefore, he urgently needs to go home. Radia smiles and notes that it's rare for Will to show interest in anything other than spirits. She understands. Radia turns to the elf girl and declares that she is going to clean up after her, so she asks her to be a good girl. The elf nods, and the young man takes the girl and returns home. Upon his return, he is immediately greeted by Hinori. She notices the girl in his arms and asks what happened to her. Will promises to explain later. He asks her to report to Milady that he took care of the uninvited guests. They saved the elf and the draft. His sister returns here with the elf. However, the girl is in critical condition, so he must heal her wounds. Will lays the girl on the bed and places his hand on her forehead and stomach. His hands glow with a soft light. This should help. At least the girl's life is no longer in danger. Will looks at the girl for a while, as if looking at his own reflection. She's different from everyone else, isn't she? If it weren't for the help of the others, perhaps, he doesn't have time to finish his thought as he suddenly hears a loud cry. It's Hinori who brought his mother here. Satya exclaims that she heard him bring the girl home and put her to bed. She yells that it's too soon for him. Hinori smiles. Satya's puts her hands to her head in despair, and the young man looks away in embarrassment. Will awkwardly replies that it's just a misunderstanding. His sister will explain everything when she returns. He also asks Hinori never to say anything so ambiguous again, so as not to cause misunderstandings. The girl looks away. She didn't do it on purpose. However, Will can't believe her, because she said those words with a smirk, and Satya realizes that she has jumped to conclusions again. She looks at Hinori indignantly. Hinori replies that it's all because Will always seems so calm. She wanted to see his anxious face. Sati smiles fondly. She wants to see more emotion from Will. Hinori agrees with her. Will mutters resignedly that he doesn't know why they're making such a big deal out of it. Radia returns with the elf under her arm. The elf mutters that the girl was too rude and asks her to be kinder. The trio looks at them suspiciously. Radia is indignant, asking why they are looking at her that way. She didn't do anything to her. Radia immediately throws the elf girl on the floor and yells at her to get up. The girl looks around in confusion, not understanding where they are. They explain to her that this is the place where spirits have lived since ancient times. Only those who have visited this place know about it. She opens her eyes wide in amazement. Will notes her interest. She has made a contract with the water spirit, and because of her actions, he thinks she can be trusted. However, Will adds that if he catches her betraying him, she is finished. She must keep that in mind. The girl grimaces. She immediately protests. How dare he speak that way in the lady's house? She hits him on the forehead, and a fight breaks out. Will says he will explain the details after the draft wakes up. Until then, she can rest a little, and he will call his mother after he finishes his preparations. The girls nod. Radia grabs the elf and drags her away with her. The young man turns to the sleeping girl. He needs to rest too. The draft girl opens her eyes slightly, not understanding where she is. Suddenly, she hears a voice telling her that she has finally woken up. Will asks her how she is feeling. Suddenly, she jumps up and falls into his arms. He asks her to calm down, saying that everything is fine. Will reassures her that the guys are gone. She looks up at him with hope in her eyes. The girl looks around and asks if he knows the elf girl who was with her. Will replies that she is resting elsewhere. He will let her meet her later when he explains the situation. For now, he tells her to take off her clothes. The girl opens her eyes wide in shock. She mumbles awkwardly, asking what he means. She asks him not to hurt her, and Will replies that she shouldn't worry. If she's so nervous, she should just close her eyes and think about something else. It will be over soon. The girl covers her eyes in embarrassment. He praises her and says it's time for them to go outside. The girl exclaims in her mind, "Outside? What is he going to do outside?" She tries to call out to him, slowly, shyly covering herself, following him. They approach a small lake in the middle of the forest. Will takes off his jacket and grabs the girl under the armpits. The girl closes her eyes, hoping he won't touch Mel. The young man throws the girl into the lake. She floats up, desperately flailing and asking for help. Will asks her to be quiet, saying it will be difficult to wash her if she keeps moving around. The girl recoils in fear, but Will replies that why would she want to do anything with her, let alone have children, when he has only just met her and she is still a child herself. Will continues sternly, saying that if she carries a child while her body is still growing, both the child and her own health will be at risk. She must remember this. The girl asks, embarrassed, why he took his clothes off then. Will says she's weird. But is it really necessary to take off your clothes to go swimming? The girl whines. Will gently washes her hair. The girl really likes the smell of the product that cleans her hair and body. Will smiles, telling her to be careful because if it gets in her eyes, they will sting. Then he asks her to hold her breath for a second and pours a bucket of water over her. Now her hair is cleaner and straighter. The next step is to wash her body. He asks her to turn around. The girl wants to wash her body herself, but Will calls her stupid. They don't have much time to wash her. They are being waited for. He asks her to be quiet and not resist. In the end, the young man attacks her with soap and helps her wash. He gives her new clean clothes and asks her to wear them for now. They are finally done. Will shouts that he wants them to come early today and asks them to use magic. Small creatures appear before them and look at the girl with interest. The girl is surprised to see that they are fairies. They don't usually appear in public, although it does happen occasionally. She stares at Will for a while, mesmerized. This man has such a kind face, she doesn't think she has ever seen anything like it before. He waves goodbye to the fairies and tells the girl that it's time for them to go, as they are expected elsewhere. The girl watches him for a while, then quickly catches up. They enter the room. The young man apologizes for keeping her waiting, and the girl immediately notices the elf. The elf runs towards her with a joyful smile, but the girl literally knocks her off her feet. Radia grabs Drafa and asks her to calm down. Hinori approaches the elf. Will sees that they are both fine and introduces himself. He gives his name and the name of his mother, the Queen of Spirits. In any case, he wants to talk to them, but first he asks them to tell him about themselves. The elf wonders how humans can be children of the Queen of Spirits. Everyone turns toward them in anticipation. The elf speaks first. She thanks them for their help. Her name is Meldina, and she is an adventurer who travels from place to place. Draf also introduces herself. Her name is Kunaria. She travels with Meldina. Will declares that there is one more. He asks her to stop hiding, as he feels uncomfortable pretending that she is not there. Surely she will not just remain silent. The spirit notes that he can indeed see her, even though she tried to make it so that only Meldina could see her. She thanks him for helping her charges. She is a water spirit and has a contract with Meldina. Her name is Misery, and she is a spirit, but she grew up as a fairy. She has very little magical power. Satya notes that she was very surprised to hear that Will had brought someone with him. All three girls have such clear eyes. She hopes that revealing their existence is a good idea. Satya approaches Kunaria and strokes her head. In fact, as Will said, there is evidence that the circulation of magical power has been disrupted. Will noticed something when he was healing her. When he infused her with magical power, it did not spread throughout her body. As the girl had this in the past, when she had a high fever that lasted for a long time. Kunaria nods. Will notes that he had the same problem as a child. Due to this disease, the magical power in the body cannot circulate normally. In most cases, people die from fever. Even if they are lucky enough to survive, their actions will be hampered by impaired magical power. A large amount of physical energy is used, which can lead to fatigue and growth failure. Kunaria notes that William is growing properly. He replies that the disease is curable, you just need to restore the original circulation path. In his case, his family helped him get through it. He doesn't know how to thank them all. The girl awkwardly presses her palms to her chest. She has been feeling very well since she woke up today. Does that mean? Will continues her thought. He has restored her magic circulation channel. Now she will not get tired as quickly as before. It will take some time to fully recover, but the girl is already very happy and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Sati asks what they plan to do from now on. She won't be able to do everything they ask, but she will try to make them feel good. Meldina replies that she wants to continue being an adventurer because she finds interesting places and learns new things, which makes her life worthwhile. Kunaria replies that she also wants to travel with her, and the spirit who has a contract with Meldina will follow her wherever she goes. Satya turns to Will. She would like to give the girls what they want, but they cannot simply send them back alone into the outside world, so she wants them to go there together. Satya orders Will to look after the girls and accompany them. The girls, who were upset at first, immediately open their eyes with joy. Then she orders him to make sure he comes back alive. Will nods, accepting the order. He humbly accepts Lady Satya's order. He turns to the girls and informs them that the trip will take place tomorrow morning. Silence reigns in the reception hall for a while. Suddenly, tears appear in Sati's eyes, who had been sitting peacefully the whole time, causing Jenny to open her eyes in surprise. Satya sobs loudly, and Will leaves. Jenny and Minnie try to calm her down. After all, they discussed this yesterday. But she will still miss him very much. Will sets off on his journey. One of the residents says that if they have any problems, they should let him know, and they can come back any time. He can leave the protection of the village to them. Will thanks them. Suddenly, a monster appears behind Will, but he knocks it away with a single blow. The girls admire that William is really strong. They also notice that the forest monsters don't look dangerous. The spirit also notes that William is very cool, but he replies that he has known the forest monsters since childhood and knows how to deal with them. Meldina does not understand how this is possible, but why he did not stop those mercenaries right away. Will replies that the mercenaries were trying to harm his family. It would be more of an obstacle if he had left them alive, as the existence of the village would have become known, so he destroyed them. Suddenly, Will turns around and asks what his sister Hinori is doing in such a place. It seems she has been found out, but William says that she did not even try to hide. The girl notes that it is her brother's first time leaving the forest. He's very anxious, so she wants to accompany him to the forest exit. William thanks her. Will remembers that today is patrol day, and Hinori is supposed to be there today. The girl awkwardly waves it off, saying everything is fine. She asked her sister Diana to replace her, so the young man shouldn't worry about it. After a while, Kunaria begins to feel a tingling sensation in her body. The young man asks her to be patient, as it will be like this every time until she is completely healed. She needs to be patient. She needs to feel the magical power emanating from him, feel it circulating through her body. She needs to feel her own path of circulation. This will make the strengthening of her body more effective. If Kunaria is going on a journey with Meldina, she had better learn how to strengthen her health. The girl nods. Suddenly, Hinori addresses her. She says that from the outside, it looks like William and Ku are having fun. The girl immediately exclaims in embarrassment. Kunaria explains that William is just treating her. Hinori laughs. Of course she knows that. William looks seriously at Hinori and turns back to Ku. If she is ready, he can teach her the basics of body strengthening and some self-defense techniques. For now, Will can't teach her to react to monsters as quickly as he does, only a little later. Kunaria agrees. She hopes it won't be difficult for him because she's all for it. Ku is sure that she will get into trouble again because she doesn't know how to fight. She wants to become strong and help everyone. If Will starts teaching her, she will need to change the way she addresses him. Hinori remarks admiringly, will Kuna now become William's student? Then she can address him as a teacher or master. Ku suggests addressing him as master. William says she can call him whatever she wants. It doesn't matter to him. Her treatment is done for today. Kunaria thanks him for his help. Then she quickly runs off to Meldine. The young man thinks about his nickname. Hinori giggles that he is happy about the arrival of a pretty student and teases him with a new nickname. Sadie looks sadly out the window. 15 years have passed since Will appeared in the village. At that time, she was so happy that they were able to help this child. At the time, she was indignant that if she couldn't participate in raising the child, she would at least give him a name, and they shouldn't have argued with her. Then they noticed that this child never cried, but instead smiled often. But when it comes down to it, it's impossible to tear herself away. She even starts to miss it. Hinori used to come to see him even on days when she was on duty. She admires that William is a very beautiful and truly quiet child. A loud cry echoes throughout the palace. At this time, Satya is sitting in her office, wanting to stop being queen and become only Will's mother. One of the maids runs into the office and calls Sati. They cannot understand what is happening to William. Something is wrong with him. He won't stop crying. He cries as if he is in pain. Meanwhile, the girls try to calm the boy down, but nothing works. Will has never cried so much before and never looked as if he was in so much pain. Satya rushes into the room anxiously. She asks what happened, but the girls don't understand themselves. He suddenly started crying a while ago, but he seems to be in a lot of pain. Satyam asks to switch places with her and approaches Will. She approaches the crying Will, and tears appear in her eyes too. She looks down, understanding why this child was abandoned. The girls ask what is wrong and what they should do. Satyam replies that everyone who is close to the precious tree should be asked to share the fruit. Satyas asks them to tell them that she will definitely thank them later. The girls run away screaming. Satyas explains that William's body is now in terrible condition, and his magical power is beginning to leave his body. Jenny and Minnie open their eyes in shock. It's hard to believe, but it's true. The reason William's hair and eyes are black is because his power is so great that it causes pigmentation. The amount of power she has is much less than his. Everyone around is very surprised. The magical power continues to accumulate in an immature body that has not yet grown. Usually, magical power is simply released, but it is impossible to do so at such a young age. The magic has nowhere to go, and it begins to spiral out of control. If they leave things as they are now, this child will surely die. They must intervene. This was the reason why his parents died and left this child behind. They don't know it, but the reason is the release of magical power. The girls press their hands to their chests anxiously, but Will is still so young. One of them runs up to Satya and asks if she can do anything. The Empress orders them to pull themselves together. William is desperately fighting for his life. They cannot give up. If they could get some fruit from the precious tree, it would be much better. But that won't solve the problem itself. Now it is necessary to unleash the magical power of this child. One of them must make a contract with him, and that one will become the vessel that receives the magical power. If Satya makes this contract, then when the magic begins to break free, no one will be able to stop it, so it has to be one of them. Hinori steps forward. She won't let him die, so she wants to make a contract with him. Satya turns to Jenny and Minnie, saying that once the magic begins to break free, there will be nothing she can do if something goes wrong, so they must evacuate everyone. Satyam also orders them not to argue with her and asks if everything is clear. The girls run off to carry out the order. Satyam begins to recite the spell. However, nothing works. The contract requires mutual consent between the spirit and the person signing it. Both parties must agree. They try again until Will accepts Hinori. They will try as many times as necessary, but nothing works. They notice that something is changing too quickly. They cannot waste a minute. Hinori must leave the village, but Satya does not know if it will work. The girl recites the spell again. Hinori promises to protect him and be like a brother and sister. Satya exclaims anxiously, asking her to stop, but Hinori continues to speak. The agreement they have just made and the promise they are about to make have different meanings. By making an agreement with William, Hinori knows that it means he will be able to command her. Hinori is putting her life and death in William's hands. That's what it means. The girl grimaces from the surge of strength and covers her eyes. When Hinori cries out, Satya immediately asks her to break the deal, saying her body won't be able to handle it. However, the girl declares that she is fine. She asks Will not to worry, she will take care of him like his sister. Hinori cries out while Satya watches in surprise. After a while, Hinori's body transforms. Satya opens her eyes wide. Hinori didn't have enough magical power to transform into a higher-level spirit. She has never seen anything like this and cannot believe that Hinori has turned into a spirit animal. The girl turns around and asks what will happen to her. William is safe now and should be happy. Satya nods. William is indeed fine. Suddenly, Hinori collapses from exhaustion. Hinori did everything she could. She was able to save William's life. Satya gently strokes Hinori's head while a calm William snuggles up to her. The man sits at the table. It has been 2 months since the demonic sword appeared in the forest. Could it have disappeared? Should he continue to prepare for it? Meanwhile, the trio walks down the street. Meldina says that the city of Faren is a place where racism is illegal. It is one of the few countries where the law strictly prohibits it. They are all of different races, but even so, she has heard that black hair and eyes are considered abominable. But looking at him, she thinks these are just rumors. However, Will replies that he was just lucky to survive. In theory, he shouldn't have lasted a year. Because of what people call annihilation, that very abomination, simply put, it is an excess of magic. The amount of magic in such cases is excessive compared to normal people, and it takes about a year for the hair and eyes to turn black from the accumulated magic. This is called the disappearance of the abomination child. He is alive because his family risked their lives to save him, which is why he is here. Meldina nods understandingly. She informs him that he will not be treated badly in the territory of Vatikarna, although people may react unexpectedly to this. However, the young man replies that it doesn't matter what others think. Will is in the outside world for the first time and will follow the advice of more experienced seekers. Canaria notes that she was very worried that she would never be able to grow up, but she must be stronger both physically and mentally. They move forward. Will clarifies that they are fencing off their territory with stone to demarcate it. However, the elf denies this. They surround the city with a fence as a barrier. Will asks for clarification. He notes that if Hinori were here, she could remove their magic on the fly, and Sister Dia could neutralize them in an instant. Meldina asks him not to underestimate this barrier, as it has an abnormal level of magic, but Cunaria replies that it is useless because the master has come out for the first time. The guard welcomes them to the city of adventurers and asks if they have identification. Meldina gives him her ID, but Will has just arrived from the countryside and doesn't have one, so she wants to ask the guild to make him one. The guard nods and asks them to enjoy the city of Fallen. They walk through the streets filled with people and beastmen. The elf asks him to follow her so they don't get lost. They approach the gate. They are immediately greeted and asked how they can help. Inside the building, there are a large number of races sitting and busy with their own affairs. They approach the girl, and the elf introduces herself, explaining that they have come to register 2 adventurers. Some men at a table recognize Meldina and remember her talents. Suddenly, someone calls out to the young man. It is a young man. He looks at the young man with anger. Why did he dye his hair this color? He won't get away with this stunt. Adventurers don't like this kind of thing. The girl behind the bar, Sarika, tries to calm him down, but Koza exclaims that people who try to get a job based solely on their appearance are not so good. Will calmly replies that he doesn't understand why he is angry, as his black eyes and black hair are his own. Everyone present stares at him in astonishment. Koza refuses to believe him. If it's true, then he's a nasty kid. How can they let a dangerous guy stay in their town? Meldina steps forward and asks them to stop talking about her friend like that. It's true, but the master is not dangerous at all. Koza smirks, looking at their team. It's no surprise that they don't understand. However, Meldina interrupts him. Everyone knows. Koza opens his eyes wide in disbelief. Is he really a nasty kid? They knew how dangerous he was, and they brought him to the city anyway. Do they understand what they've done? The girl replies that she doesn't care about their circumstances. Besides, if Will were who they say he is, would he even exist in their world? Koza tells them not to regret it. He will soon leave the city because he does not want to die. The elf smiles and thanks him for his advice, but they have been through enough together, and she trusts her experience more than their stories. The man clicks his tongue and leaves the tavern. The other adventurers also get moving. Meldina apologizes to Sarika and asks her to do something for her. The girl nods. Sarika asks him to fill out this registration form, offering to write it for him, but the young man replies then he can write. Then he pulls the sheet back. Sarika looks at it. Everything is correct. They will issue him an ID soon. He just has to wait a little. Suddenly, a man kicks open the tavern door. The man enters the tavern with a group of people and immediately approaches Will. He immediately expresses his opinion that the young man cannot do whatever he wants in this city. However, Will turns away. He doesn't need him to tell him what to do. The man is bothering him, so he asks him to shut up. The man is indignant. The boy will listen to him until he kicks him out. Will sighs. Isn't this the kind of person who is usually asked to leave? He tells Sarika that he will be back soon and asks her to complete the document issuance process. He goes outside, where a crowd of adventurers is already waiting for him. Naldina anxiously reminds him that fighting is allowed, but killing is not. Will looks at the girl in surprise. Not allowed? If he kills him, it will interfere with his further actions. Will can incapacitate him. Will nods. He needs to take him out without killing him. The adventurers ask impatiently if they can stop whispering now. In any case, the man does not chase the girls away. He may even take care of them. However, Will interrupts him, saying that if he has time to talk, why doesn't he call him later? Suddenly, an adventurer appears behind Will and attacks him, but the young man easily dodges the attack. With a smirk, he asks, "Was that a greeting?" The man swears loudly. Will offers to defeat him, but he doesn't even know if such unexpected attacks are good. The man yells at him to shut up, and immediately sends his accomplices to attack. Will easily blocks one attack after another and scatters the adventurers. Then he attacks in return. He attacks one adventurer from behind. The man doesn't even have time to react. Then the young man sits on the angry man, putting his hands behind his back. Without hesitation, the man immediately apologizes. However, Will declares that he is not kind enough to forgive his opponents and let them go unharmed. Will promises to beat him with only his left hand. The man screams in pain. He regrets getting into a fight with Will. He should have surrendered. Will turns to the other adventurers and asks them to thank Koji for this, as he is the one who made their lives difficult. If they are not satisfied with this outcome, Will can fight again. However, the adventurers look away awkwardly. The young man turns around and returns to the tavern. Upon entering the guild, Will is immediately greeted. It is an elf with glasses, who asks to talk to him about something. Will asks who he is. The man introduces himself as Shazar, head of the Adventurers Guild. He is responsible for the guild and is obliged to find out what is going on. He was hoping that Will would help him with this. Will explains that one of his subordinates attacked him, so he fought back. Shazar smiles. He is not going to blame him for that. He just wants to ask him how a man who was born such an unfortunate child could grow up to be such a decent person. No matter how much Shazar has read, he has never heard of such a child who lived longer than a year. He asks William to tell his story. Shazar cannot treat him specially, but he promises that his friends in the guild will not be bothered. The elf continues to look at Will expectantly. The boy covers his eyes. In the end, Will agrees, but asks for a more spacious place. Also, to prove the truth of the story, it would be preferable to do so outdoors. The elf nods. They have a training camp where they can go. He also asks that if anyone wants to hear his story, they be allowed to. It's quite difficult to explain the same thing over and over again. If there are those among the willing who do not like him, they should still be allowed to listen. The elf nods, but they need a little time. The young man replies that everything is fine. He asks to be told when everyone is ready. In the meantime, he will study the information he needs to know about the guild. Shazar turns to Sarika. He asks her to bring tea and sweets. He will be accompanying important people. The girl nods. Sarika, trembling slightly, brings the young man tea, remembering how he defeated those adventurers. After a while, the elf returns with some people. The young man looks at them awkwardly, because they have gathered to talk. Shazar nods, but these people are quite prejudiced against the young man. Will nods, thinking it's better to start talking as soon as possible, and asks to be taken to the training camp. The elf orders everyone to follow him. The adventurers involuntarily turn to look at Will as they follow Shazar. Will thinks that the outside world can indeed cause a lot of trouble. They all gather at the training camp. Will begins his story and answers their questions. He asks them not to interrupt him while he is speaking. People say that such a child possesses enormous magic. The change in eye and hair color is due to pigment caused by accumulated magic. The reason for the disappearance of such people is that their magical power becomes uncontrollable and begins to break free. For now, this is what they need to know about such children. The beastman notes that the destruction of such children after a year seems inevitable. However, Will has made significant progress. They need convincing evidence as to why this happened. The man agrees that disappearance is inevitable and there is no other evidence to support his story. Will knew there would be those who would tell him this, but he is connected to someone who can prove it to him. He asks if he can raise his voice here, and the elf does not object. He begins to read the spell, and soon Hinori appears before them. Everyone is stunned by the appearance of the Supreme Spirit, for few have agreed to such a contract. The girl greets Will. He is glad that she responded. Hinori greets the girls and asks how they are getting along with Will. Meldina and Kunaria also greet the girl, telling her how they interact with Will. Shazar asks in surprise if it is summoning magic. Shazar speculates on who this girl might be, but the young man is about to correct his reasoning. Hinori is not just a high-level spirit, she is the highest form of spirit, the highest spiritual being. Those around him are amazed. One man exclaims that this is a lie, that beast spirits only exist in legendary tales, and that Will, as a despicable child, could not have made such a contract. Hinori immediately flares up with rage. The man was told to listen, and she will not allow William to be humiliated. Shazar immediately asks her to calm down and cool off. He will talk to this boy and not allow him to speak like that again. Hinori turns to Will. Will suggests forgiving them this time. This meeting could be beneficial to them in the future. Hinori agrees to let it go, but says there will be no next time. Shazar immediately thanks her. Then they continue their conversation. After a while, Will finishes his story. Shazar cannot believe what he has heard. Will asks if Shazar will keep his promise. He nods, saying that excessive contact with Will and his friends is forbidden. Sierra, the beast man who asked the first question, apologizes for not checking first. He promises to help if any problems arise. Assam, the guild's production manager, also apologizes and says he wants to cooperate with Will. Nanatera, head of the guild's trade division, also offers to help if he needs anything. Baselard, diplomat of the Kingdom of Humananon, also apologizes. William forgives them. He will live in this city for a while and intends to learn a lot here, therefore he relies on them. Hinori asks permission to return and asks to be called again sometime. Will nods with a smile. He thanks Hinori, saying he will rely on her again. The girl says goodbye to Meldina and Kunaria. She smiles and disappears. Shazar watches in amazement. It's amazing. It's impossible to do with normal strength. He can't believe Will is capable of such a thing. Shazar turns to William. He really regrets everything that happened. Then he hands him the ID card he made for the young man. Will thanks him with a smile. They continue on their way down the street, and Meldina suggests taking a break. They find a place called Wooden Tomari. They are greeted immediately upon entering. The cat tells them that the cost of accommodation is 5 silver coins per person per night, or 4 coins per person if they share a room. The cat continues to smile brightly. Meldina asks for a room for 3 people for 2 nights. She and the girl want to stay in the same room. Meldina is about to pay, but remembers the kidnapping and freezes awkwardly. Suddenly, Will hands over 4 gold coins and 5 silver coins, asking her to take care of them for the next 5 days. The cat declares that he is a good man and does not allow women to pay for him but pays himself. The cat turns around and says that his daughter will show them to their rooms. He calls Ruru. The girl looks at them shyly, hiding behind the wall. The girl looks at Will with a slight look of fear, then greets them with a smile. She thanks them for using their services. Ruru will show them to their rooms and asks them to follow her. Meldina awkwardly thanks Will. She had completely forgotten that her wallet had been stolen. They enter their rooms. Meldina and Kunaria chat in their room. Suddenly, Will knocks on their door. The elf asks what happened, if there is anything he doesn't understand, and how to apply it. Will replies that no, now that the accommodation has been sorted out, he would like to start teaching Kunaria combat techniques tomorrow. He wants to know how much experience and knowledge she has. The elf invites him inside. Will immediately explains that he will be teaching Kunaria martial arts and physical training. The girl smiles gratefully. But before that, he needs to learn about her physical training and combat experience. Will asks her to tell him what she knows. Kunaria replies that she has no combat experience. During her travels, she simply ran away or hid. Physical enhancement is a type of magic that uses magical power to increase physical abilities. That's all she knows. In that case, Will suggests starting from the beginning. Meldina asks if the physical enhancement she uses is slightly different from the one William uses. Kunaria nods. Will looks at her, telling her that if she has any questions, she shouldn't be shy about asking him. For example, physical enhancement is magic that improves physical abilities if Kunaria's own physical ability is 1. Then she needs to improve her physical abilities with magical power and increase her physical strength to 3 or 4. The elf immediately smiles and repeats this to Kunaria, but Will notes that there are individual differences in physical strengthening and that there are limits. If you strengthen your body but exceed this limit, your body will be damaged. Will asks Meldina if she knows about physical strengthening. She knows that the vanguard with magical power, like warriors with magic, is more effective than simple mages. However, Will shakes his head firmly. He cannot be mistaken about Meldina's personal limit under normal conditions. The reason the vanguard is more effective is that they have more endurance because they train their bodies. The elf understands that to increase the limit of her physical strength, she simply needs to train her body. He agrees that this is also effective. Will turns to Kunaria and asks, if you put more than is possible into a vessel that can break, and they still want to use it, how should it be done in that case? Kunaria tentatively suggests that it should be filled gradually and carefully. Meldina also wants to answer the question, but Will forbids her. He turns to Ku again, telling her not to rush her answer. Even if filled slowly and carefully, the vessel could break. What should be done to use such a vessel safely? Suddenly, Kunaria comes up with an answer. She replies that it is necessary to strengthen its use, as this is safer. Will nods, that's the right answer, you need to strengthen it, just increase the power. If they strengthen the body beyond its limits, they will suffer damage. But if they simply strengthen their bodies, they will not suffer damage, and the amount of magical power consumed will increase. Meldina immediately demonstrates several exercises, but Will replies that it won't work. The elf grabs her head and exclaims that stereotypes do get in the way after all. It seems that Meldina has only now understood the meaning. Can Kunaria try it? Will replies that Meldina was able to strengthen her body, but it's not about feeling healthier. Kunaria, who knows nothing, can learn faster. It all depends on her efforts. Today, they will practice feeling the power that circulates inside, and tomorrow, full training will begin. The girl with a bright smile says she understands. She will try her best. The next day arrives. Will trains Kunaria. He says she is too focused on her opponent, and her magical power is chaotic because of this. She needs to concentrate. The girl nods, trying to concentrate. Meldina holds her fists for her. After a while, Kunaria falls to the ground, exhausted. Will asks her to remember to circulate her magical power, even when she can't move. If she mentally penetrates every corner of her body, it will speed up her recovery. Will places his hand on her forehead, and Kunaria replies that she understands. Meldina smiles and notes that William's magical power and skills are at the highest level. It is usually ineffective to transfer magical power to other people in order to transform it. Will replies that he has been sharing his magical abilities with spirits since childhood. Transferring magical power is not difficult if you know the right amount. Meldina exclaims that this is not considered normal. A water spirit appears and asks him to give her some of his power. Will is against it. The spirit asks if she will be able to take Meldina's magical power after that. Will thinks that the quality does not change when transferring different types of magical power, but he does not know how good an idea this is. However, it is possible to transfer magical power between a spirit and an executor. When Meldina signed a contract with Miserio, she felt that they were connected. After that, everything went well for her, so she didn't think about it. This feeling of connection is called resonance. Those who have signed a contract are connected at the soul level. Because through this connection, magical power is also transformed into qualities. This makes it easier to transfer magic. The water spirit nods in understanding. He asks if Kunaria is okay. The girl stands up and stretches. Will can now see the whole problem. Kunaria has very poor energy coverage due to her small stature, although she has potential for growth in the future. They must train with weapons that she could use and that would complement her. If Kunaria is comfortable with it, a bow would be a good choice. She is related to the cow race, so when she grows up, the bow can be made a little bigger. The girl covers herself helplessly, which will tear her chest apart. Will then recommends a spear and an axe. If she wants ease of handling and movement, then she can choose a spear. If she wants destructive force, then an axe. They will work with whatever weapon Kunaria wants. The girl replies that she wants to use the axe. Meldina suggests that she choose the spear, as it is easier to handle, since it will be her first time fighting. Kunaria knows that it would be better to choose that weapon, but this will be her first battle. She won't be able to fight well no matter which weapon she chooses, so she wants to use the axe to gain strength. Will understands her feelings, and calmly tells her that starting tomorrow, in addition to strengthening their bodies, they will train in the Western style. The elf asks discontentedly, she has never seen Will use an axe. Is he sure he is ready to do this? Will declares that he can use any weapon, as long as it is basic. His family trained him in various ways. His fists, like his body, cannot be fragile. Kunaria still doubts whether someone like her can become as strong. Will knows what she is worried about. He will take care of her, she doesn't need to worry, and he won't miss a single one of her blows. After that, Will asks if she is ready. The girl with burning eyes says she is ready. She proudly sticks out her chest, and the master says he will teach her everything and she will become stronger. First, she needs to choose a weapon. They go shopping and choose something that Kunaria likes. Will note that it's not what they need, but Kunaria heard that it was in a weapon shop and thought it looked good. Will points out that there are problems with the blade. It is not very well sharpened and is uneven, so it may break quickly. The elf asks discontentedly if there is a weapon worthy of Will's attention. Suddenly, they notice a familiar face. It's Assam, the blacksmith from the guild. He is surprised that William remembers him. Assam asks if they are looking for weapons and armor or just wandering around. William replies that he is looking for a weapon for this girl. They can't find anything good. Does he know of a suitable shop? Assam thinks about it. They are dissatisfied with the weapons they have seen in nearby shops, so he will take them to his shop. Assam has the best quality in town, and he is proud to be the best in this regard. Will has just started to think about going to another city. Kunaria also thanks the blacksmith. They have been walking for quite a while, but they reach a dead end. Will realizes that the shop is underground. Assam only sells to those he can trust, so the shop is underground, hidden from the main street. The blacksmith presses a mechanism and asks them to come in and look around. Assam welcomes them to the eagle shop. The elf admires the weapons on display. These weapons are so good that they cannot be compared to those in other shops. Kunaria is also delighted, and the blacksmith smiles contentedly. It seems they like it, which is the main thing. Every weapon they see here is a masterpiece. They can take their time. Suddenly, Will notices a barrel, walks over to it, and pulls out an axe. He hands the axe to the girl and asks her to take it, but to be careful. Will declares that it is the best weapon in the store. Judging by its magical conductivity, it contains mithril. The weapon is durable and does not weaken the destructive power of the axe. He did not think such a treasure existed. The blacksmith laughs cheerfully, having figured it out at first glance. The axe is made of a special metal, a mixture of tamahagan and mithril. It has excellent efficiency, but because of this, its hue is a little dull. Most people don't find anything remarkable about it. The blacksmith asks if he has made a contract with a spirit beast, as this interests him. Will wants to stop there and asks how much it costs. However, the blacksmith replies that he does not need money. He did not want to take money from anyone who would take this weapon in the first place. Assam wanted to meet someone who would immediately see the value of the weapon and know its advantages. That was his dream, that's all. The spirit of fire is the result of great effort. William has a contract with one of the most powerful spirits, but they still behave respectfully, so the young man simply has to take this axe. Will appreciates it, but it's a little awkward that it's free. Assam tries to calm him down, saying he doesn't need money. However, suddenly the young man shows the blacksmith a small stone, causing him to freeze in disbelief. It is a magic stone, a fire stone. The young man throws it to the blacksmith, who scolds him for throwing such precious stones around. Will asks if he can now take care of him. Now it is his stone, and he can do whatever he wants with it. Assam thanks him, saying he will take care of it, as it means too much to him. The blacksmith also offers to choose a weapon for the elf girl. It will be a gift, she immediately exclaims enthusiastically. Will apologizes for her, but the blacksmith tells him not to worry, he has received more than they have anyway. The blacksmith asks if Will needs a weapon, but he prefers his fists. But if that's what he wants, Will asks to be served next time they come. The blacksmith invites them to come again. William is always welcome here. Assam watches as Kunaria tries to lift a heavy axe. William is conducting a seminar for novice adventurers. The rest will be tomorrow. Today we are working on special techniques with Kunaria. The girl nods and thanks him with a smile. He asks her to come closer. Will mentally notes that at first she could barely lift the axe. Now she can swing it. Kunaria is getting stronger. Today he will teach her martial arts. Comprehensive training is a method that allows you to strengthen your body and feel the circulation throughout it. That's where their lesson ends. The girl exhales. Will suggests spreading the remaining magical power and restoring her physical abilities. Kunaria tries to do this. The elf notes that Kuna is getting stronger every day. At first, Will thought she would give up quickly, but now he is amazed by her persistence. With a smile, Mel remarks that it's surprising that anything can surprise Will. She didn't expect this, so they will both try hard and become stronger. For the past few days, he has just been training them, but soon they will be fighting real battles. Kunaria is getting stronger, and that is encouraging. The time for adventurers is coming. Kunaria is really looking forward to it. Kunaria doesn't want to be a burden to the master and Mel, so she will do her best. In his room, the young man sits on his bed and meditates. So far, everything is going well. There are no suspicious activities, and he can trust them. They mentally reply that he should let them know if any problems arise. Everything is fine with them too. The intruders have entered the forest, but not very deep. So far, there are no actions that could cause problems. It seems that the words of high-ranking people carry weight in the outside world, so he will become an adventurer. The forest will only be used as a territory, and they will be able to reduce the number of attackers. Hinori replies that she is ready to help. The blonde girl notes that he needs to take time for himself. Suddenly, he hears another offended voice. He replies that he did not want to leave her, so she should not worry. The girl asks him to call her next time, and then she will forgive him. The girls exclaim that it's not fair. Will gives in to their wishes. He is distracted by a loud knock. He apologizes, saying he will contact them later. Kunaria bursts in, shouting that she is in trouble. Will explains that the circulation of magical energy has almost completely recovered. Her body has started to grow again. The girl exclaims joyfully that everything else will also grow bigger and bigger. She will be as beautiful a woman as Satya, Hinori, and Radia. Suddenly, Will turns to her. He asks her to put something on, as she might catch a cold after a hot bath. Suddenly, she realizes what she's wearing and sits down on the floor, embarrassed. Mel runs into the room, wanting to warn Will about Kuna's arrival, but then she notices her there. The elf notes with displeasure that she is, of course, glad that the girl found Will, but if there had been another guy, she would have regretted it. Kunaria explains with embarrassment that she wanted to tell the master that he had healed her because she had started growing again. The girl is always like this when she gets excited, completely oblivious to what is going on around her. It gets a little out of hand, but Mel will keep an eye on it. Will also doesn't think Kunaria will be able to stand up for herself if something happens, but the girl replies that everything will be fine. She brought them together, so it's time to go to dinner. When dawn breaks, they approach the bulletin board. They choose a task to study plants and fruits, defeat a stray cat, and walk a dog. They choose the plant request. Did Will say anything to the guildmaster? The elf notes that the methods Will used were revolutionary, and teaching about the properties of medicinal herbs can also be improved. Will notes that he helped with advice. They arrive at the guild, where they are welcomed. Today is Will and Kunaria's first day of work. Sarika also begins her day at work. They hand the girl 3 requests, and Sarika wishes them a successful day. They thank her, but suddenly the girl asks them to wait. She asks if they have reported the 2 completed requests. They don't understand what Sarika means, and the girl takes something out of her scarf. At this point, 2 tasks have been completed, defeating the catpolt and collecting Luan herbs and Kusakita fruits. She writes down 3, and there is 1 more request left, the last one. The guys involuntarily glance at each other. This is their last task, and they need to finish it as soon as possible. They approach the tall gate guarded by a sentry. Will pulls out the paper. They have come on request. The guard reads it for a while, then smiles strangely. He asks them to wait a moment. Mel notices that his expression has changed dramatically, and she even feels scared. It was the most unpleasant smile she had ever seen. Mel wonders what he's up to. Kunaria is also a little worried. However, Will reassures them. It doesn't matter what they think of the stranger. If they dwell on it, it will give them a headache. The guards ask them to follow them. The guard continues to grin strangely as he leads them to the place. He brings them to a huge cage from which a terrifying growl can be heard. The guard replies that the owner loves his pet, a huge wolf, very much. He asks them to enjoy themselves, but not to harm him. Will is unarmed, so he will deal with him. Meldina exclaims indignantly. The young man recalls that the request stated that they should play with the pet. The guard exclaims that there was a note in the column saying that if it helps relieve the animal's stress, then everything is fine. The young man asks him to open the door. The guard grits his teeth, being confident is cool, but he asks him to be careful so he doesn't get eaten. The guy unlocks the door. Will goes inside and sees a huge white animal. It seems to have a lot of anger built up inside it, but he asks him not to worry. Everything will be fine with this animal. The wolf growls desperately and runs towards Will, but suddenly finds itself on top. The animal freezes in shock when it lands on its paws. Will asks it not to worry, otherwise the tension in its body will increase. The wolf runs towards him again, but the young man deftly dodges it. The guard does not understand how this is possible. Isn't the boy E-rank? Mel calmly replies that if that were the case, he would not have defeated these wolves. Kuna adds that even though it is not serious work, the master's actions can still be instructive. Will continues to entertain the wolf for several hours. He explains that they left them in such a small space. Animals need to be trained, otherwise they will start to gain weight. The animals are very impressed by Will's attention. The girls watch him with admiration while the guards grit their teeth. Will smiles and asks the animal, petting it, "Isn't that better?" Suddenly, they hear a voice saying that this is impossible, that Silbert cannot become so attached to other people. A silhouette appears in the doorway. It is a young girl in a wheelchair. She asks what this means. The guard awkwardly replies that they are adventurers who received a request from the guild, and he took the guy to Silbert's place and let him take care of him. They arrived today. They are the very adventurers she asked to take Tombert for a walk, so why did the guard bring them to her husband Silbert? The guard tries to justify himself, saying that he apparently misunderstood and thought that the adventurers were here to look after Silbert. However, Will declares that this is a lie. The request he showed them was from Mrs. Sonata, and then he was brought to this place. When they explained about the animals, the guard said they were the owner's pets. In fact, he simply did not like Will's black eyes and black hair, so they deliberately brought them here. Mel immediately exclaims that they were so surprised that Will easily dodged the wolf. They thought he was an adventurer of the E rank. They deliberately brought them here, knowing the danger. They told the master to be careful so that he wouldn't be eaten so easily. The lady immediately exclaims that the guard is fired, so he should pack his things and leave immediately. The guard tries to ask her for forgiveness, but she is adamant. He does not understand why she is protecting this boy, but the lady replies that he knows nothing about him, and if he thought about it, he would understand. Although the boy looks like a child who brings misfortune, he is a human being, recognized as such by the older members of the Faren family. How could the guard have done such a thing without telling her or her husband? The guard sighs and is led away. The lady apologizes for the inconvenience. She heard William's story but forgot to inform the servants. She apologizes, saying she doesn't really understand these things. Mel replies that she doesn't need to apologize for the servants, and asks her to lift her head. The lady asks them to tell her about their work successes and wants to show them Albert's room. She asks them to follow her. Suddenly, they hear Will's voice behind them, saying he would be very grateful if they would open a door for him. The girls smile awkwardly. Did he really think they had forgotten about him? That's not the case at all. They are celebrating Will and Kuna's first successful job. Let's drink to that. Mel knew they would succeed. After inspecting Albert's room and playing with Silbert, they were given many rewards. It even seemed that Silbert didn't want Will to leave. Mel is glad they were able to convince him. It seems that Silbert understands human language. He brings them steaks from young rabbits and salads of seasonal vegetables, as well as braised pork with salt. They thank Ruru. Her father is truly a master chef. Ruru is glad they think so, because she also loves his dishes very much. For their next request, they would like something related to combat so that Kunaria can gain more battle experience. The girl tries to say something with her mouth full. Will notes that it's time for Kunaria to get stronger, not to mention special training. It's better to have some practical experience. If Meldina sees a good request, she should let him know, because he will be training Kunaria in special training for a while. Will calls out to Hinori, and she notices that everything is fine with them. Will is busy tickling the little spirit. Hinori remembers how Mio used to get angry when she trained with her and she tickled her. It seems she now understands why. Kunaria also gets angry sometimes, but once you get used to it, everything is fine. The spirit breathes a sigh of relief. It's finally over. Now the young man calls Meldina over, but she shyly refuses, saying she definitely doesn't need it. However, Hinori grabs her from behind, declaring that she won't let her go. She begins to tickle her gently. The young man calmly watches this. Hinori wanted to remind Mel and Mio not to use magic indiscriminately. They must control their magical power so that it suits their goals. They need to practice controlling their magical power more. Mio and Mel say they will try. Hinori asks Will to take care of himself, and the young man says goodbye to her, asking her to say hello to everyone for him. Hinori reminds him that she promised Fu that she couldn't be summoned, so it's a secret. Will smiles awkwardly, seeming to have kept her a little too long. Hinori smiles. Her little brother is so popular with the sisters, he shouldn't get cocky. He says goodbye to her. They also need to find work for today. The Kingdom of Humanians. A young man reports to the king sitting on the throne. This is the information reported in Faren about the child who brought misfortune. He was so upset that he couldn't get along with his spirit animals. The old man replies that this is nonsense. Does this mean that a child with great magical power was considered vile? The young men standing nearby talk among themselves, not quite trusting Bazelard's words. The king is not concerned about spirit animals, but wonders if it is possible to bring the vile child to their country. The young man replies that it is. However, the negotiations may take some time, and in a sense, they will ask him honestly. He is indeed concerned. The king wants to entrust this matter to someone else. The blonde-haired young man has just had an idea. According to Lord Bazelard, this William is an adventurer, and if that is the case, he can be appointed as an escort from Faren to their country. Why shouldn't the king ask him to come to their country? The king agrees, as he was going to call there anyway. If he accompanies one of the most important people in his country, they will be able to invite him to the castle. And who will be sent to Faren to accompany him? A girl appears from behind a pillar, very interested in the nasty child, an adventurer named William. This is indeed very interesting. Sarika confirmed the request had been completed. She congratulates them. Starting today, William and Kuna are promoted to D rank. Everyone is satisfied with their work, not to mention their achievements. Their results are truly impressive. As their mentor, Mel is proud of them. From now on, she will also participate as a team member alongside William and the others. Kunaria is happy that they will finally be able to work with Mel. Sarika asks if Will and his friends could spare her some time. The young man agrees, as he has no plans for the day. Sarika replies that Shazar would like to talk to them. He asked her to take William and his friends to the room. She will accompany them and invites them to follow her. She knocks on the door and reports that William and his friends have arrived. She invites them inside, but what they see makes them freeze in shock. Before them stands a completely exhausted Shazar with large bags under his eyes. He congratulates William and Kunaria on their new rank. He also thanks Meldina for her work as a mentor. He congratulates her as well. The girls ask anxiously if everything is okay and if he is getting any rest. He replies that he has been very busy lately with the luan grass and berries that Will told him about. He has finished his research and will soon be able to rest. He asks if Will has changed his mind. If he joins, Shazar will name his research after him, and Will's fame will grow. However, Will now enjoys being an adventurer. He's sorry, but he does not want to spend time studying medicinal herbs right now, and he does not want to promote his name as a pioneer. Therefore, Shazar can announce the discovery in his own name. However, Shazar cannot act so unscrupulously. They simply won't publicize the name of the discoverer. This time, he called them because he wanted to ask them to deal with the bandits. Initially, this was the privilege of C-rank adventurers, but unfortunately, they are not in town right now. Since it was urgent, he consulted with B-rank adventurers and above, but they refused. So he remembered William and his friends. Do they have C-rank abilities? Will turns to Meldine and Kunaria, thinking about taking on the job, and asks what they think about it. The girls also agree without hesitation. They all decide to do it, so they ask for details about the request. They arrive at the scene. This is where the merchants were attacked. The attack happened 2 days ago, and many got away with only minor injuries and lost their cargo. But Mel heard that 2 of the adventurers accompanying them were killed. Will suggests that those who carried out the attack are probably resting somewhere nearby. He will try to track them down. Mel doesn't understand how they will find this place. Will won't be able to track them down in the mountains. They need more information. The young man asks her not to worry about it, as he will now summon someone who can help them. Will raises his hand and recites a spell to summon a white wolf. After a while, a little girl appears in front of them. Will has managed to summon her. She immediately flies up and hugs Will around the neck. It's been so long. She can smell and feel him. Will smiles. They haven't seen each other in a long time. He asks her to stop sniffing him. After a long journey, he smells of sweat, but the girl likes it. The young man has no choice but to accept it. He introduces the girls to Fumi, the wolf spirit who controls the wind. As they already understand, she is his younger sister, and Will hopes that they will get along. Fumi has already heard about them from her older sisters. But no sister can take Fumi's place because she loves her little brother very much. She is happy to meet them. Mel is delighted with her, and it is very nice to meet her. Kunaria also greets her joyfully. The water spirit also comes out to meet them. Fu says she only sees 2 and doesn't see Miserio, but if her brother trusts them, Fu will too. Miserio comes closer, stating that Mel is too stubborn and doesn't want to admit it, but she is here to protect the girls. She doesn't know much about spirits, but she is happy to meet her. Fu is happy to meet the 3 of them, and now that they've met, Will has a question. Fu is ready to answer all his questions. Will explains that 2 days ago, there was a fight between people here. Can Fu track them down by the smell of blood? The girl falls to the ground in sadness. The girl lay on the ground and said with a smile that she liked the smell of her brother so much, and confessed that she felt happy. The guy replied that she didn't have to do it if she didn't want to, and added a request not to be so depressed. The girl asked if her brother's scent would stay on her after she did this, and looked at him seriously. She said that she would accept his request if he would do it, and promised to work hard, expressing her willingness. Sitting on his shoulders, she pointed into the distance, noticing a person ahead of her, and reported it to everyone, accompanied by words. She frowned, saying that it smelled awful, and added that people obviously hadn't washed for a long time. The heroes moved forward through the forest, their footsteps accompanied by rustling leaves and sounds that increased the sense of tension. They noticed a group of people around the campfire and guards nearby, discussing the situation and assessing the opponent's strength. The girl said that everything coincided with Mrs. Fu's information, and he said that the attack would not be particularly difficult. After Cunario was abducted by slavers, the girl reacted cautiously to such actions. The hero closed her mouth, explaining that this was a test. He told her that he and Fu would support her and asked her how she would manage alone without Malada. The girl looked at him in surprise. The hero asked her to try to become stronger, and next to her, Fury intervened in the conversation. The girl clutched her hands to her chest, remembering images from the past. She was surrounded by the silhouettes of familiar people, and tears rolled down her cheeks. Parents said that if she didn't overcome herself, she would never achieve results and success. She listened carefully to the words about a future where she would need to defend herself. The girl resolutely said that she wanted to become an adventurer. Thoughts about myself suddenly surfaced. She realized that she used to think she was strong, but that wasn't how she realized it. I wanted to match Will and be close to Mel. The girl always wanted to go with them together. The girl resolutely declared that she would do it and make every effort. She was determined to become stronger and move forward. Gathering her thoughts, she said that it would be worthy to fight alongside her friends. Determination filled her, giving her confidence. The guy said that he understood her decision and agreed with him, adding that if so, they will act together. She confidently spoke the words about continuing the journey, and the entire group headed forward, preparing for the next challenge. The girl was hiding behind a tree, trembling in fear and clutching her hand as she looked at the man in front of her. She knew that the initiative was now hers. She whispered to herself that she was very scared. She wanted to leave everything and run away, but gathering her strength, she decided to stay. The girl with the ears stood in thought and clenched a fist at her chest, admitting to herself that she needed to change. She tried to control her steps so that she could walk noiselessly, because the noise made it difficult for her to concentrate. At that moment, a knock was heard from the other side, interrupting her attempts to concentrate and practice the movement. He walked along the road, focused on his thoughts. Another man suddenly appeared behind them, quickened his pace, and called out sharply. A hand gripped his shoulder, forcing him to stop. He looked back in surprise and thoughtfully asked if it had started to rain. The heroine stood silently, not making a single sound as the enemy fell, letting out her last screams of pain and terror. She raised her weapon, her face full of determination. Shouting her ally's name, the girl stepped forward, preparing for another attack. The group was resting by the campfire when a sudden cry of a water attack rang out. The slugs moved swiftly forward, causing panic. People jumped up, stunned by what was happening. One shouted that the enemy was attacking, the other asked in confusion what kind of attack it was. Cunaria ran forward, oblivious to the danger. The guy behind noticed the hanging axe and shouted. He called her name in a panic, warning her of the threat. From above, a huge axe began to descend abruptly right in front of her. The girl, her face contorted with rage, raised the heavy weapon over her head and brought it down with a shout, causing the man to freeze in shock. The heroine struck a blow, plunging it into the body of the opponent. The heroine was covered in blood splatters and looked with dilated eyes. Her expression reflected the suddenness and tension of what was happening. The man was trapped in the wreckage and screamed for help in a panic, aware of the danger that was coming at him. The girl, covered in battle marks, shouted out the Aqua Storm spell, summoning powerful water magic for protection. They tried to run away in fear amid the chaos, but the ground shook and Hakefellow, hearing screams that tore the air. The girl with ears appeared in front of him, blocking his path and coldly asking where he was going, her eyes piercing him. The girl announced that she would wipe out the opponent from the face of the earth and delivered a powerful blow that tore through his body. The character with ears caught the smell and noted that it was the only one left. Her words increased the tension among the others. All eyes turned to the two girls, and one of the people present was surprised that they could have done all this. The enraged man did not believe what was happening and swore that he would not rest until he rubbed them into the ground. The heroine cast a spell, after which a stream of glittering blades was formed in the sky, rushing down. The contestants screamed in panic and covered their heads with their hands as a rain of sharp blades rained down on them. The two men exchanged blows, one crying out in pain, the other collapsing to the ground. As the group gathered together in the rain, a magic sign flashed over the forest. The prisoners were warned that if they escaped, they would be killed, and if they resisted, they would be handed over to the authorities. One of the guards added that, with calm behavior, there is a chance to stay alive. There was talk of courage among the prisoners, and one of the guards sneered at the mention of women. He raised his voice sharply, emphasizing the humiliation. Another prisoner exclaimed as he pointed at a young guy standing to the side. He was accused of cowardice and lack of courage in battle. Then it was taunted that he was weaker than the others. The situation became increasingly tense, and the guards increased the psychological pressure on the prisoners. The young man offered the prisoners to fight him, saying that he would let them all go if they won. His words caused tension among the prisoners. One of the prisoners, unable to stand it, shouted with anger and rushed to attack. Everyone else was watching the fight begin. The youth calmly looked up, remaining unperturbed before the attack. His opponent slammed down hard, causing the floor to crack. The impact produced a huge rumble, causing the walls to shake. The bystanders watched the collision in amazement, not expecting such force from the fighter. The guy in the jump threw a strong kick, bringing it down directly on the opponent. The force of the attack caused everyone around them to freeze in amazement. The audience screamed in surprise as they watched the scene. Their faces expressed shock and tension at the power of the attack being demonstrated. The guy stood still while the enemy fell nearby, leaving a deep dent in the ground. Everyone's eyes were on him. He walked slowly forward, ignoring the fallen enemies. Ahead of him, sword in hand, was his next opponent. The spear hit the ground hard, leaving a crack, and the opponent staggered back in fear, realizing the danger. In the next second, he struck out with lightning speed, aiming straight at the opponent, leaving Tom no time to defend. He struck out with his spear pointed in the direction of the opponent, forcing him to retreat, not daring to get any closer. The guy with a cold expression confidently parried the blows of the opponents, scattering their weapons to the sides and forcing the enemies to retreat back. The crowd of opponents in a panic began to shout that they were giving up, begging for mercy and admitting that they were wrong. But the cold-eyed guy kept moving forward. He recalled that the choice was given at the very beginning, but the opponents preferred the worst option. His words were a harsh verdict. He wondered how to pass the time while the adults sat hand-tied in front of him. He wondered what to do with them. Startled, the captives confessed that they would not resist again. They begged not to kill them and promised to sit tight. The leader ordered at least one witness to be left behind. The others agreed to follow the instructions, noting that it would be better this way. He told me to collect what looked like evidence and bring it back. The girls confirmed their readiness to obey the order while he watched the prisoners. A group of people gathered near the counter, where a girl with papers was loudly offering a lucrative job. She stressed that the offer is valid only today, regardless of rank, and encouraged everyone to come up. Nearby, the seekers were talking animatedly about what they had seen, surprised that such tasks could be quickly sorted out. One of them noted that such work is rarely found nearby, and the other agreed, calling it luck. The elf noticed that everything was happening too suddenly and heard an offer to accompany them so that the task would be carried out flawlessly. The girl agreed in response and added that she would be happy to explain everything in more detail. He asked her to explain what was going on, and she nodded in the affirmative. Other seekers gathered around, watching the conversation closely. There were fallen enemies lying on the ground, and a light appeared nearby, and a group of people emerged from it. They stopped at the edge of the trees, watching. The guild master noted that a squad had arrived to subdue the bandits. Alarm and confusion rose among the crowd, and everyone started talking at once. The chief noted that Dina and Kunaria did a good job. He was surprised by the speed of implementation and asked to deliver a report. The prisoners were shown bound, explaining that there were only 2 survivors left. The stolen items were located in the cave. The warlord ordered all the corpses removed and the rest taken into custody. The squad was told to check everything and make a list. The guy said that the corpses should be buried. Before that, the Kunari would have to dig holes and watch the action. She showed how the destructive force increases if the blow penetrates inside the target. The guy was told to be more attentive and concentrate. The guy pulled out his sword and left a deep mark on the ground. He turned to the girl named Kunaria, asking if she understood. After that, he demanded that Kunaria try to repeat his action, observing her reaction and readiness to complete the task. Kunaria enthusiastically agreed and decided to try it, clenching her fists and preparing to show off her strength in front of the others. She slashed out with an effort that made a loud noise and surprised the onlookers, who hadn't expected such force from her. The girl happily showed the result, surprising the others with her strength. Everyone stared in amazement at the deep crater in the ground. A guy and a girl watched the test result, standing next to a hole in the ground. The characters are standing at the counter, where the girl congratulated them on completing the task. She reported that they had done well again and deserved a promotion. With a smile, she announced her promotion to a higher rank. Their success was celebrated with joy. The main character wondered if their group was being promoted too quickly. After all, they had recently received a D rank. His girlfriend assured him that everything was fine. The countergirl explained that Kundaria was getting a C rank today. She supported their progress with a smile. The man remembered with a slight smile that the elf Meldina was ranked B. The countergirl added that they will be able to catch more Banites in the future. She expressed her expectation for more progress. The heroes were assured that they will receive all the required points. The warriors discussed the elf girl, admiring her beauty and courage. They recalled how she was skilled at fighting with a sword and protecting others. 3 girls shared their impressions of Uma, noting his good looks and reliability. They admitted that they did not believe the rumors about him before. The men returned to the room discussing how the 3 of them had managed to deal with the robbers, doubting their success. They were angry, scolding. Wilma was also annoyed that Kunaria was always by his side. Men discussed Medina, indignant that she spends a lot of time with a guy and does not pay attention to others. They envied his closeness to her. The guy entered the tavern and heard thanks for his help. The girl happily said that the number of robbers attacking merchants began to grow. The man thanked the hero for the quickly completed task and said that he did not expect such speed. He expressed gratitude on behalf of the people of Faren. He added that, thanks to this, it was possible to find what belonged to the daughter of the family. The man noted that residents are also grateful for the help. The girl was surprised to hear about a valuable stolen item. She asked why she hadn't been informed of this earlier. The hero replied that the item wasn't that valuable. The man explained that for them it is expensive, because it is the weapon of the daughter of the family. The elf said that he did not expect such a result and expected losses, but the hero coped in one day, causing admiration. The hero modestly replied that it was a good experience for them. The girl happily added that she also learned a lot. The elf announced a reward, 30 gold coins for completing the task, and another 10 for finding the robber's lair. He added 10 gold pieces for clearing bodies, 15 for finding more robbers than expected, and 20 for delivering stolen goods. The hero was surprised by the accuracy of the calculations, and the girl happily raised her hands. He turned to Wilm to ask a question. He looked at the other man with interest and asked if there was anything he could ask. Wilm calmly agreed to listen to him. Wilm thought about the upcoming expenses and admitted that he did not yet have clear plans for the money received. The girl noticed that they did a good job this time and offered to get a gift for it, reminding them of difficult events. With a smile, she asked her companion what she thought of the gift, and he calmly replied that their actions were successful. The guy said thoughtfully that it was all due to Wilm's tactics, and the people standing nearby listened in surprise to their conversation. The girl snapped out that they deserved a gift and emphasized her point vigorously, demanding a fair reward. The girl happily asked the guy's opinion about the offer, and he noticed that she was very touched and promised to take care of her. The guy tried to explain in confusion that it was a gift that they wanted to receive, and the girl vigorously insisted on her desire. She asked them to give them something new and comfortable for movement, emphasizing that the item should emphasize their beauty. A girl with ears happily expressed her gratitude, and another asked if they would pay for it themselves. She answered in the affirmative, adding that the money had already been received. The man with the mustache asked about the role of Miss Kunaria, and the girl noticed that her body shape is subject to frequent changes, and it is worth considering the equipment. The girl offered to go to the store when the situation stabilizes a little, and the guy added that the situation is still too difficult to create a body. She was thinking about the right clothes for Miss Kunaria, which would not restrict her movements and provide comfort. She clarified Melanie's wishes. The elf offered to choose more adult shades and refused bright colors. She stressed that bright clothes do not suit her. Pessinage happily talked about the new arrival of products, emphasizing that the white color suits Melanie well. She noted the strength of the fabric. She reported that Kunaria's clothes cost 20 gold pieces due to the quality of the cloth, while Melina's clothes cost 18. She offered a discount for the inconvenience. The guy was surprised by the offer, and the girl said that Yovari gold coins is too much for her. He thought about the new price. She said that she has been doing business for a long time, but this is the first time she has met such a person. She offered to settle on that price and smiled. Customers said goodbye, and the girl promised to deliver the order before the end of the day. She introduced a store called Hiro no Tomarigi. The guy and the girl went outside and stopped at the entrance of the store. He looked at the sign thoughtfully and said that this was the place. The girl with ears happily greeted the guests, announcing that they were expected and their clothes were ready. They hurried after her, following her instructions. She showed the ordered outfits and handed them to the girls, noting that one thing is especially dear to her, but she is happy to share. Everyone admired the beautiful clothes and thanked her. The girl smiled in response, glad to be able to give such pleasure to her clients. The guy was standing by the door, watching the 2 girls who were happily inviting him to look at their outfits. One of them turned to him, smiling. Both girls looked at new clothes. One admitted that for the first time she put on such an outfit, noting the pleasant fabric. She asked him if he looked strange in it. The guy looked in surprise at the girls who posed in new outfits. He noted the comfort and protection of Medina's clothing, as well as the slight vulnerability of Kunaria's outfit. The girls were standing together, discussing their clothes, one laughing and looking confident, the other looking away in embarrassment. The guy watched them with incomprehension, and another girl noted that he did not understand the feelings of girls. The girl walked down the street and remembered that 2 weeks had passed since the purchase of a new outfit. She noted that he was comfortable to wear. She thought that this outfit made her happier. Her mood lifted every time she put it on, and every day felt like a holiday. At this time, several men were restraining someone in the alley. The man asked them to let go in a hurry, but they didn't react. The man roughly restrained the girl, saying that the place is dangerous, and therefore offered to accompany her. She resisted, demanding to be released. They decided to step in and help the girl. Cunaria and Maldina called out loudly for help. He reacted warily, readying himself for action. Wilm walked calmly down the street, thinking that without new assignments, he might be out of a job. He noted that Maldine had taught him that. The girls called out to him and asked if he was going to leave that girl. The elf looked indignant, and her companion stiffened as well. The hero replied that he did not know her personally. The elf protested that he knew the girl and couldn't just leave her. The guy noted that the help was not mandatory. The elf girl was indignant and abruptly stopped him. She added that they were still going to help, even though they didn't know each other very well, and then she pulled his hand and called out to Kuna. The man noticed the girls approaching and told his partner that everything was going according to plan, so he had better not interfere. He added that the girls looked pretty. Another man suggested that the group take a walk together. Wilm watched with a serious expression, preparing to intervene. The guys in a panic began to justify themselves and ask for forgiveness, saying that they would not touch anyone else and would calmly leave. They were afraid and began to suspect that they might be killed, calling the boy a scary child. The company watched in silence. The woman stood nearby and watched the situation with a smile. They were quick to explain that they didn't scare the attackers and didn't do anything. They noticed that the guys ran away after seeing the black-haired master. The girl thanked for the help and drew attention to the boy with black eyes and hair, assuming that it was he who scared the bandits. The guy calmly stood in front of the girl in armor, who jumped at him with a sword in her hands, accusing him of tearing the princess's clothes. She swung at him furiously, threatening him with death. The hero notices the danger to Listy, shouts her name. The girl exclaims, "Stop." The other explains that the man defeated the criminal who kidnapped the princess. Listy screams in fear. The enemy restrains her. The princess is asked not to worry. The tension increases. The young man stands to the side and watches in silence. The hero creates many copies around the enemy, thinks about the girl, her words, her misunderstanding, rage, and wonders if he can kill. Another character shouts accusations, calls him a criminal, demands to stop what is happening, promises to kill for his actions, and the tension between them increases. The young man threatens the girl, saying that he will kill her, but she mockingly responds, considering it just a funny joke. She doubts that he is capable of defeating her. After all, he only dodged before and suggests to try again. The knight screams for her to be killed, considering it better than being humiliated by the knight. She resists, but her actions are filled with desperation. The hero observes her determination and anger, sees that she is not afraid of death, but only of humiliation. He resolutely replies that he understands her mood. His words are calm but firm. The girl reacts to this in fear and surprise. The guy notices that the girl unexpectedly dodged the blow. Surprised, asks her about it, because she herself demanded death. The girl in confusion shouts that it is so accepted, justifies the danger of the situation, recognizes the fear of death and the internal contradiction before her own words. He thinks about what to do if an ordinary girl knight asks to kill her, asks about the style, hints at possible entertainment, thinking seriously. The girl screams, as if he might find it funny to mock her, and provokes a harsh response. The hero is perplexed as to who should have a child immediately after meeting, and the observers quietly note the familiar manner of the master's speech. The princess turns to the hero with regret, explains that the guards attacked by mistake, apologizes sincerely, admitting guilt, her words surprise. The knight is indignant, declares that the princess is not supposed to apologize, blames the hero, claims that he is guilty, the tension increases, everyone is amazed. The princess is surprised to realize that she is facing the same ordinary girl, the knight Listy. Her reaction draws the attention of everyone present. The hero calmly replies that he did not intend to save them, but if he wanted to help, he would have done it at the request. Listy yells at the hero in a rage, calling him a bastard and a coward, accusing him of not helping. He adds that they don't even know what might have happened then, stresses the seriousness of the situation, and Listy refuses to accept his words. The princess asks the hero if he would help if it was related to a job assignment. The hero grudgingly admits that he may have agreed. Listy chimes in but is interrupted. Then there is the question of how the princess knows the hero's name. Everyone around us is surprised, because no one has mentioned this before. The girls exchange glances, waiting for an answer. The princess introduces herself as Lumeria Hyomanio and explains that she has been allowed to investigate. She recognized the name because of its popularity in the city. The hero says that he doesn't care what they do, and it's not particularly interesting. However, he warns that if it causes inconvenience, he will not forgive. Listy reacts violently. She shouts at him to watch his words, threatens him with violence. Tensions are rising again, and the situation is almost spiraling out of control. The princess tries to smooth things over. The girl then explains that her father is interested in the hero. She asks him to accompany her to the kingdom of Hyomanio, adds that the father wants to apologize for the statements of his subordinate. The guy remembers how someone looked at Hinori's sister, thinking only about the strength of the spirit of the deceased beast. He understands that people often see only the outside. Then he confesses that he would like to stay out of the forest's business, but that the chances of breaking his promise are extremely high. My thoughts sound unsettling. When asked what to do then, he says that you should watch the guild. The mention of Maladin Kunaria's name is heard, arousing interest. The princess clarifies if they don't mind having to comply with the request from her first. The others are happy to agree, because the opportunity to work with the princess seems rare and honorable. She officially asks them to join the Adventurers Guild for a while. Her companions thank her for the opportunity, but Listy remains serious and observes what is happening. Princess Lumeria officially announces the request to the guild, and everyone agrees to submit it for consideration. If Willem and his companions agree, it will be accepted. The secretary is instructed to draw up a document and place an order. Everything looks serious, and the discussion takes place in an official setting. The hero calmly confirms readiness. However, a warning sounds if you force it to act by force, it will lead to a conflict. Then Shazar will become Zeldaya's enemy, and the consequences will be severe. The princess promises that she will tell the queen everything that has been said and undertakes to treat the hero without prejudice. She is reminded of her promise and agrees. The scene is then moved to another location. In a bright environment, characters with ears and tails appear, joyfully greeting someone, expressing lively emotions. The hero gathers his companions and begins to discuss the path. He explains that the fastest way is to use the entrance to the city, which is the most convenient. The princess offers to stop at the post station, but warns that there are many adventurers and merchants there, so there may not be enough space. She also stresses that she does not intend to use her power for such purposes. The others start arguing, discussing the possibility of stopping, and express different points of view. The princess says she wants their trip to remain a secret. She asks you to remain inconspicuous and avoid unnecessary attention. Along the way, they discuss accommodation for the night, and one of the companions jokingly asks to stay in her room, which causes embarrassment and indignation. Listy flushes, chiding him for saying that, and calls it a threat, not a request. The others watch with mixed emotions and caution. During the task of collecting Luan's herbs, a frightened companion runs up to Will. She screams his name in a panic and informs him that there is a serious problem. Will asks what happened to Meldina, if she noticed anything unusual. The girl answers in the affirmative and hurriedly pulls him along, insisting that he go with her. Will carefully examines the footprints on the ground and notices deep furrows. He realizes that these are the claw marks of an unknown creature. Horrified, Meldina explains that such markings could not have been left by kobolds. The tracks are much bigger than any monsters she's ever seen. Meldina, in a panic, assumes that the tracks belong to an unknown creature, much larger than a kobold. She had never seen anything like it before. She notices that Kuna is missing and begins to worry that the monster might have attacked her. In desperation, she grabs Will and asks what they should do now. Meldina was shouting Kuna's name, but Will noticed that her loud screams would only attract the other monsters, putting the girl in danger. In desperation, she said that if they didn't look for her friend, she might die, and asked them to act immediately. The girl begged Willa to help, insisting that they needed to find Kuna soon, otherwise everything would end badly. Willel started to explain that the claw mark might not have been dangerous, but Meldina suddenly screamed when she noticed a disturbing movement in the woods. She admitted that she had shouted too loudly. Now all the monsters were heading towards them. Will knew that something was coming. Meldina called out to the spirit, begging it to lend her power, and beside her, Willel watched in silence, keeping his calm. The ghost turned to look at her in surprise. Willa immediately noticed that everything was under control, saying confidently that everything was in order. Meldina enthusiastically said that with Will's strength of mind and support, they would be able to do it quickly, and then they would be able to find Kuna. Will alerted her when he saw something approaching out of the darkness. The girl paused, and they both braced themselves for the impending threat. Kuna returns with an armful of Luan herbs, happily informs Melchan of her discovery, and the others search for the missing monster. The hero asks Meldina to take a closer look at the footprints on the ground, explaining that they were not a monster, but Kuna's axe. Meldina angrily exclaims that she should have said this earlier, and an apologetic, "sorry," sounds from the satellite next to her. In the background, you can see a large castle and city houses. A tower rises against the wall, and below a bustling market with people. The guard on the tower complains of hunger and remembers that he is replacing someone else who asked him to take his place. He dreams of going back and eating, but suddenly notices something in the sky and abruptly changes his expression to one of surprise. Soon, he sees a flying creature that startles him so much that he utters stunned words about the impossible sight. The guards raise the alarm in a panic and prepare their weapons. One of them loudly shouts about the appearance of a flying dragon. A huge creature with wings appears in the sky, and its sudden appearance stuns the soldiers, causing them to fear. The guards anxiously discuss the dragon's appearance, admitting that they will not be able to defeat it without additional outside help. They doubt where the creature came from and realize that they are too weak to fight it on their own. Meanwhile, a group of heroes watches from above. Thinking about actions, one asks the master what to do in the situation. Willem offers an unexpected solution to just jump from a height, which causes surprise among his companions. Another emphasizes that she is immortal and would not take the risk, although with Kunalia, everything can end well. One of the girls immediately agrees, but recognizes the riskiness of the idea, noting that ordinary people will not survive like this. Willem takes the princess in his arms and asks if she is ready to carry out her risky plan. The startled girl realizes that they are really going to jump and screams in horror, looking down. The guy with the princess jumps down, holding her tightly in his arms, and she screams in fright and demands to let go. The guards are startled to recognize the girl as a princess and exclaim in fear that it is indeed her in Willem's arms. The princess, being in the hands of the hero, with surprise and excitement calls him master, not understanding what is happening to the end. Willem and the princess successfully land, and the heroes note that everything went almost without fear and quite safely. However, the guards demand to release her immediately and order the princess to be returned, menacingly pointing their weapons at Willem. The guards decide that the dragon belongs to Willem and declare that it must be captured immediately along with the princess. The princess is distraught, and Willem explains that his body is still shaking a little, even though there is no danger yet. They approach, but the hero calmly asks to wait a little, noting that he has already landed and the girl can get off. The princess resolutely stands between the guards and Willem, demanding to immediately stop the threats and remove the pointed weapons. She orders everyone to lower their blades and declares it firmly, causing the warriors to look at each other in confusion and doubt what is happening. The guards stop in confusion when they hear the princess' firm order and don't understand why she is protecting Willem. She smiles and says that they are not enemies, promising to explain everything later and calling for an end to the tension. After that, the princess orders a messenger to be sent to the royal castle and notify that she has brought guests. The princess orders everyone to disperse and make room for the dragon to land safely next to them. The guards are surprised by her determination, but they obey, watching as the huge creature carefully descends to the ground. They are amazed by her ability to control the dragon and admire her courage, calling it an incredible and respectable act. The guards are amazed that the princess was able to subdue a huge dragon and discuss his obedience to her orders. They exclaim with delight that the dragon is now following her and unanimously praise their fearless princess. Meanwhile, another girl, bound and confused, begs to be finally released from her bonds. Princess Moralia appeared with her squad. The soldiers exclaimed that this was the princess herself. The captain of the 3rd Night Squad, Liz Lotte, along with 200 soldiers greeted her. The knights said they were glad to see her safe and sound, and promised that the guests would be escorted safely. Merrily turned to Liz, who said she was glad to see her. The princess said there was nothing to worry about and everything was fine. The knight pondered, saying with a slight grin, something puzzled her. Liz turned to the princess with suspicion and asked her not to tell her that she had done something wrong again. The princess denied that everything was fine and added that Liz was very worried about her, but she said it was unnecessary because she was here and everything was fine. The princess said that she had given them advance notice of her departure, so there was no need to pretend that no one knew anything at all. She ordered the knight to listen carefully, announced his removal from office, and demanded to explain to all her subjects the reason for leaving the castle. Then she added that she would deal with Listy herself, and told the former security guard to go home, waiting for the royal decree. Liz reminded that the princess, as the personification of the country, is responsible. She added that armed force and reinsurance never hurt. One of the heroines was indignant and demanded an explanation of why her duties were being removed, claiming that this was completely unfair. The other calmly explained that even though she didn't have the chance to talk to her superiors, she was still a knight. Commander Liz Lade apologized for the delay, introduced herself as the leader of the 3rd Night Squad, and greeted the audience with great respect. Liz said it was a pleasure to meet them, and noted that she had been assigned to escort them to the royal palace with full respect. Maldina replied that it was a great honor to meet Liz, and Canaria added that she was also very happy to meet her. Liz then invited everyone to follow her, and the group headed towards the palace, leaving the sleeping dragon to rest. In the luxurious hall, a table was set with treats. Guests were invited to take their seats and relax before the meeting. The young man turned to them and told them to follow him. He took a calm step and headed for the door. They followed the guide down the palace corridor, their footsteps echoing through the halls decorated with mirrors and pillars. The heroes entered the hall to the throne, followed by the knights, and hoped that the meeting with the king would be calm and respectful. The king was sitting on the throne, and the young man asked in surprise if this particular person was really the ruler of the country. The courtiers shouted for him to show respect, fall to his knees, and apologize for his harsh words. The king stopped his advisors and ordered them to remain calm, indicating that he would handle the situation on his own. He looked at the young man carefully and noticed that he was trying to intimidate him, although he looked very reserved. The king said that the opponent's words are like a light wind, they have no meaning for him. The king said that everyone covers up their weaknesses in different ways. The strong physically defend themselves with words, the strong spiritually hide their shortcomings. He added that he hates pretense and hypocrisy. Such people cause him disgust and doubt in their words. The young man introduced himself as Willem, explaining that he had not come here by himself, but at the request of the princess. The king said he couldn't remember where he'd heard Willem's name, and added that he didn't listen to other people. He noticed that since Willem was already standing in front of him, he could drop the unnecessary details and get straight to the point. The boy replied that he was the man the whole kingdom was talking about and wouldn't be friendly just because he was the king. The king noticed that Willem spoke beautifully and remembered what Basilard had told him about his story. He admitted that he was surprised at how well Willem understood his thoughts, and added that he had heard about the adventurer's exploits for a long time. So he expressed his desire for Willem to be under his command, because it seemed too obvious a solution. Willem emphatically stated that he refused, which surprised everyone present. The king smiled thoughtfully and asked him to listen to the end. The king said that he would like to see him as his subordinate, but after Basilard's story, he changed his mind. Hearing this, the girl replied in surprise that this is how. The king said that he wanted to cooperate with him, which caused surprise. The courtiers were outraged because the king bowed his head to the commoner. The king angrily ordered silence. The young man reminded that Willem had to survive according to the laws of the world and remain human despite the difficulties. The girl said that she knows if there is a danger, they will help her, because he shows true intentions. The king confessed that he sincerely wanted Willem's help, and for this he was ready to bow his head and even get on his knees. He said he was a murderer and asked if they understood what they were asking. The girls exclaimed to wait. The king remarked that he was killing for good, saving other people, and that this was not evil. The young man replied that he would kill anyone who dared to threaten his loved ones, whether it was a human or a monster. The king said that he had heard enough about him and only wanted them to be able to cooperate for the sake of profit and goals. The young man replied that he understood his feelings but still did not agree. At that moment, the girl screamed, asking her father to wait. The man ran into the hall. The king angrily asked what he was doing here and ordered him to leave, as they were in the middle of important negotiations. But the man objected, telling his father that he could not leave the country in the hands of someone who made the wrong decisions and did not think about its future. The king asked in surprise what was going on. The man protested that you couldn't just rely on Basilard's stories when it came to someone's abilities. Then he offered to check if Basilard's words were really true. In his opinion, this was the only way to verify the authenticity of what was said. He added that if it turns out otherwise, the person in front of them may be an ordinary bandit, and then the situation will be clarified immediately. They stand opposite each other, and the atmosphere in the hall becomes more serious. The king tries to justify him, claiming that the forces increased precisely because of the contract. But the other man objects, saying that everything happened because of this, and it's better to check it out directly. After that, the man demands proof. He asks if the contract with Vam is really concluded, and tells him to summon a spirit beast if this is really the case. The guy said he couldn't show Hinori in front of everyone. Another sneered that he was just afraid and asked if that meant it was all a lie. The young man replied that no, he was not lying, but stressed that you should not abuse your status. Adventurers must be honest and brave, otherwise they will not earn their trust. Word by word, the situation escalated. Anger and tension were in the air. Someone ordered an end to the argument, noting that such insults can be severely punished. But the man was not going to back down. He stressed that he was only interested in whether the contract was actually concluded. He pressed on, claiming that the whole story was a lie. In his opinion, the words of others could be empty, and the hero himself could only be a deceiver. He added that it was possible that someone was standing in front of them who didn't really have any power, and therefore all the stories about him were just fiction. Suddenly, someone spoke a spell to the ancient spirit. The voice demanded to hear him and come. At this moment, everyone watched in amazement as the power of the summon manifested. One of the people present exclaimed the name of the spirit that had appeared. The character said with determination that they should show their strength. The hero immediately became alert and reacted with alarm to what was happening. Suddenly, a fiery light appeared in front of his eyes, and the hero exclaimed in shock, "What is it?" He stared at his opponent, not understanding where the other's strength came from, and was clearly startled by what he saw. There was a bright flash in the hall, and a majestic winged spirit appeared right out of the flames, illuminating the entire space with its power. Out of the blinding light, Hinori appeared in the form of a majestic angel with wings, which shocked everyone present. The hero screamed in frustration, asking why she showed up. He asked her to come back. Hinori ordered him to shut up, saying that she wouldn't kill him, and added that she was only raising one small child who couldn't even talk to people. The surprised young man said her name, and the other character could only stutter in horror. The hero thought of Hinori, noting that she had appeared on her own and that there was something scary about her. Then he was surprised to notice that the situation seemed strange, and at that moment, something abruptly caught his attention. The man said that this is the hero's spiritual beast, calling it an incredible art created by God himself. He then added that he would learn all of the hero's abilities and make him his spirit. After that, he offered to test its strength, confidently stating that it would become his spirit beast. The two men looked at each other carefully, tension hanging in the air. The man then broke into a smug smile, clearly preparing for a decisive action. One of the characters was grabbed by a clawed hand and screamed in panic, trying to remind him that he had royal blood in his veins. The creature that squeezed him said indifferently that he didn't care who was in front of him, and added that he deserved to be punished, because his master shouldn't have such a bad temper. The prisoner shouted out in frustration that it was a misunderstanding, although he realized that the reason was due to his belonging to the royal families. The guy asked Will to punish him instead of Lloyd. He also said that he might not be able to contain the anger of his beast and asked for it to be calmed down. The main character stated that he did not summon her. He added that it may have appeared because of his malice, but in fact, the contract with Hinori did not mean that he could manage it. He admitted that right now, even if he wanted to, he couldn't stop her. Besides, he didn't care what others thought of him, since he had told her that he wanted her. The main character said that he wasn't going to stop her. Another person asked in surprise if he had fainted. The girl said that she was sorry for her action because her master tried to make friends with the royal family. She then warned that if she continued to be mocked, she would tear everyone to shreds. He turned to the spirit beast, asking for forgiveness for his stupid mistake. Then he added that he did not expect such an act from Loy and promised that when he came to his senses, he would properly punish him. One of them said that there was no need to explain anything, but noted that it was possible to issue a decree. He told me to remember that. Another added that then there would be no threat, and said that he was not going to obey anyone but his master. One of them said that the outside world has its own rules, and asked why he forgave the impudent man. Another thought that killing him wouldn't be difficult, but if he did, the country would start a war against them. Then he reasoned that even if they won the war, the country's weakening would follow, followed by an endless war with all the countries, which would eventually affect the entire continent. First, he was asked if he really wanted to do this. He said not exactly, because he didn't want to put anyone in danger. Then he was asked to learn more about this world. He was promised that when his opinion changed, then everything he ordered would be done. He thought that meant no murders, and thanked her, saying he understood. At first, they said that if Hinori agreed, there would be no objections. Then they added that if His Majesty also does not object, then it is worth ending this conflict peacefully. The king replied that this was exactly what he had hoped for. He thanked them for accepting him and announced that he was ordering Lloyd to be placed under house arrest so that he wouldn't dare do it again. The young man happily called out Hinori's name. A cloaked man stepped out of the shadows. He paused to observe the palace, and as he was lost in thought, he was delighted to note that the spirit beast was truly beautiful. He thought that this was the spirit he needed. The creature's combat power was so great that no one could stand up to it in a solo battle. There was a certainty in his mind he and the spirit were perfect for each other, as if they were meant to be. He chuckled, completely absorbed in the thought, and his smile turned sinister. He thought that he would definitely find a way to get this spirit and was sure that he would be able to carry out his plan. In his mind, there was a warning that he would make Hinori wait until they met. The girl noticed something strange and turned around in surprise, paying attention to what was happening. She saw a stranger in a raincoat. He laughed and suddenly drew his sword, preparing to attack. The mysterious stranger said that Lord Listy, as expected, was indeed the most powerful person in the kingdom, and he had already seen it more than once. Listy then asked who he was. The warrior held a sword at the throat of the enemy and demanded to know why he had come. He threatened to kill me if he heard the silence. The stranger noticed that the other person was too impatient. He said it looked complicated. He continued to speak calmly and said that he was glad to meet you. He sounded confident despite the threat of a gun. The stranger called the warrior Lord Listy. The warrior replied that there was something important that he wanted to talk about. The stranger gave his name and said his name was Julius. He added that he has a message for the interlocutor from someone else. He then asked for the sword pointed at him to be removed. The warrior sharply refused and threatened to kill him on the spot. He said that Julius must speak as he is, otherwise there will be reprisals. The stranger declared that the kingdom was weak and its end was near. He asked me to team up with him for the sake of survival. The warrior was surprised and asked how he knew the future. In response, the stranger said about the incredible strength of the guy with the spirit. The warrior exclaimed that the strength of a foreign spirit and a guy has nothing to do with their country and position. The stranger acknowledged the truth of the words, but noticed that not everyone recognizes that guy, and the warrior is the crown prince. He added that the contract can be terminated and expressed doubts about the strength of the union with this spirit. The stranger said that if they joined forces, they could come to a common decision and become more powerful. He noted that the warrior is also unpleasant to be near that person, and it will not be difficult to convince others. He added that unification for the sake of the kingdom is necessary, and even if the attempt fails, it will remain a plus. The warrior exclaimed back, startled by the words, but the stranger insisted that it was worth joining forces for the sake of the country. The stranger said that even if the king was against it, it wouldn't be a problem. He noted that the interlocutor is not a weak person and has strong abilities, so he should follow him. The warrior protested indignantly, asking if that would not be considered treason. He exclaimed that he could not betray his country and his own father by rejecting the offer. The warrior exclaimed to Wei that it would be a betrayal, showing his indignation. His words were harsh, as if Hikai couldn't agree to the stranger's suggestion. The stranger calmly replied that this was not a betrayal, but rather a display of loyalty to the kingdom. He said they would save the country together. The girl was startled by what she heard and fell silent, unable to find the words. She was reminded that her father's confession also mattered. She took a deep breath, her eyes showing fear and doubt. After a pause, she admitted that the other man was right. The stranger said that with the help of the devil's power, Listy would be able to help His Highness and protect his kingdom. The stranger said that only a hero can save the country from the coming disaster, so he asked me to lend him my strength and work together. He laughed and added that he wanted to cooperate, because the help will change a lot. The hero replied that he understood him, although there were still doubts in his soul. The stranger said it was going to happen right now, and his slight smile suggested that he had already planned everything. He said that the real fun was just beginning, promised it in person, and asked with a smile if you liked what was happening. The girl asked if he would stay another week. The young man replied that, on the contrary, he was very tired and was going to leave. Someone introduced himself as a knight of Lizaroth, said that he would be accompanying Lord Vilm and Lady Cunaria today, demonstrating seriousness. When the girl saw Beilud, she was surprised to see that she hadn't expected to see him here, and asked why he was there. The boy replied that he had come because of a matter connected with Mr. Wilm and asked if he was bothering them. The warrior noticed the approaching young man and greeted him. He was surprised and asked what was the matter, watching what was happening. He introduced himself as Richard Lisserati and said with a smile that there was nothing to be done, causing an awkward reaction from the other person. Another young man explained that he couldn't talk directly right now and suggested that they move away a little to discuss it. Beluda Havan introduced himself as a spirit mage, saying that he had recently met them and that they were therefore acquainted. He added that he was glad to have the opportunity to work together again. Will calmly agreed that he would be happy to cooperate by accepting him into the team. Cunaria noted that he, like Meldina, is a spirit mage, and recalled his merits in destroying orcs and fighting demons, highlighting his achievements. Beluda said that he didn't come here for stories. He said that he shouldn't be so surprised, and explained that his goal was to talk to Mr. Wilm, the spirit mage and summoner. Wilm noticed that Beluda's spirit was strong. Beluda explained that he was interested in learning about his contract with the strongest of spirits, and asked to share the story. At the end, he added that no one would think otherwise, emphasizing his true intentions. Belud said that he came with good intentions and was just curious. Then he summoned a spirit named Sandra. When the spirit appeared, he added that it was his spirit. Belud said that this is Sandra, adding that she is not a high spirit. He then asked her to greet the others. Ghost tried to introduce herself. Wilm watched in surprise as she tried to say something. The girls thanked them for their cooperation. One of them then remarked that this was Belud's contract spirit, adding that it turned out as expected, although the spirit didn't make much of an impression. Will said nothing, and the spirit flinched at the words. The guy noticed that the spirit has a strange reaction to people, and wondered if she was afraid of them. He found this an interesting observation. Belud apologized to everyone and explained that Duh was actually just very shy. Everyone was surprised by what was happening, and the atmosphere heated up. Belud immediately began to reassure others, saying that everything was fine, and asked them not to worry. He added that this is only between them and that everything will pass soon, hinting that the situation is not dangerous. However, the girl intervened and loudly stated that Mr. Wilm and Kunaria did not intend to ignore this. Wilm excused himself, saying that he had to leave for a while as he needed to see Meldina. He stressed that her safety is most important. The girl reacted with surprise to his decision, calling him by his first name, Lisarot. Wilm told them to be careful and added that they would return as soon as they found Meldina. The girls thanked him. One of the girls urged Kunaria to go with her. She agreed, answering yes. Kunaria turned to the boy in surprise, calling him master. It flashed through her mind that she found him strange. Will said it was loud, but he couldn't feel anyone here. He noticed that it seemed to be here somewhere. P. Aaron, together with the girl, notices strange sounds. A girl with long hair appeared unexpectedly, said it was something, and then, when faced with an unexpected obstacle, noticed that there was a shield in front of her. The girl sharply exclaimed not to approach her. The guy calmly asked if she needed help. She thought that although her magic power was normal, it wasn't enough, as her concentration and speed levels were dropping. The guy said that he understood, and added that she needed to rest. Will thought there wasn't much left. He noted that, as expected, the barrier was quite strong, but the girl broke through it quite well. He shouted that just a little more, and that right now he would make an effort. After that, the barrier cracked open with a bang, and everyone around them was amazed at what they saw. Kunaria screamed, and the other caught her. She asked Mel if she was all right. She said it was all right. The girl admitted that she spent almost all her magic power on it. Wim thanked them. Meldina told Mio that she was doing great too. Mio was overjoyed and exclaimed that she understood. The guy said that you need to restore your magic powers. He told Kunaria to stand guard, and Kunaria replied that she understood. The guy turned to Meldine, calling her by name, and asked her to relax. He said that he would try to help her and promised to restore her magic. Meldina also admitted that, to be honest, she does not understand anything. The girl paused in surprise when she saw the crystal. Another girl exclaimed that it was a princess. The girl screamed for the summoner to retreat, and with a battle cry, she charged. The girl exclaimed that she would not leave, and added that she would not miss the opponent. She charged and collided with the enemy. Another girl shouted that it was dangerous here, admitted that she didn't understand what the idiot was doing at all, and ordered her to leave immediately. Kunaria screamed for Lady Remelia to be saved and called out to the master. She added that no one should even think of insulting him. The enemy in a rage shouted that he was a curse that brings bad luck. The girl thought in despair how he could not understand this, and called the master again. The girl says that he saved them from slavery. She adds that he healed her of her pain. Her words are calm and confident. She thinks his actions are important. The girl admits his rudeness. She emphasizes that this is not a big deal. She shouts out the word sharply. She says he's not dangerous. Her face is full of emotions. The opponent shouts that trusting him is madness. She declares that she is here to save the princess. She adds that she must protect her. Then she goes on to talk about her decision. She emphasizes that it is up to her to do this. The girl stands in surprise, while the knight is breathing heavily, holding the sword in his hands. Then he rushes forward, and both are thrown back after the collision. The princess smiles and says that she should be there. The knight stops and looks at her intently. Then the second girl continues the conversation and says that it's not about Rumelia at all. The knight is surprised and asks what she means, and the girl declares that He considers himself the most needy. She says that her actions were for profit, adds that she doesn't know much about him, and asks what was done for the princess. The girl claims that she did everything for the sake of the princess, but another doubts and asks if it is possible to justify any actions in this way. The second adds that it is easier to say for the princess than to admit the real reason for the actions, and directly accuses her. The first one answers that this is not true, tries to object and explain, but her words are interrupted and the thought remains incomplete. Even though she was an escort, she was constantly away from her, which raised doubts about her loyalty. She didn't pay attention to her words and accidentally hit the master who saved Lady Romelia, causing the situation to become tense. She didn't pay attention to her words and accidentally hit the master who saved Lady Romelia, causing the situation to become tense. Insha, the job fell to Romelia, and reminded her that even after arriving in the kingdom, that hadn't changed. Monril Bach, she pointed out that although she talked about protection and salvation, in reality everything happened quite differently from what was stated in words. She stated that all this was done by Romelia for her sake, and not at all for Romelia's sake, as previously shown. The knight screamed for silence, but then asked what the other person really knew about her. After that, she stated that since childhood she wanted to serve her, emphasizing her sincere devotion and inner feelings. She said that she was the one who should protect her from danger, take care of her, be close to her, gain trust and see a smile, claiming that all this should belong only to her. Kunaria accused her of selfishness and claimed that she was behaving like a spoiled princess girl, saying this with annoyance. The girl added that if the feelings for Romelia are really strong, then caring should not require rewards and recognition. Kunaria exclaimed that if those words were sincere, it would be better to stop being her escort and give up the role. After this flashback, the princess turned to Listy, stating that from now on she would be her new escort and accompany her further. She said that the name Listy was too long and suggested that we just call it Listy. Then, with a smile, she asked me to take care of her, and in response I received a short consent. Listy wondered where she had made the mistake, remembering how the princess had called her to go to the city together. She remembered the words about serving the princess so that she could always see her smile, and admitting that she just wanted it. She remembered how she had once made a mistake, and even though she had been forgiven, she still felt guilty inside. The princess noticed the scratches on it, said that there was nothing to be done, and stressed that it was important to study, but there was a measure for everything. The girl understood that no one had ever cared about her injuries before, but now it was the princess who treated them and supported them. She admitted that she always said that she does everything for the sake of the princess, but only later realized the truth. In fact, it wasn't just her that she was defending, but her own ideals that were hidden behind the words of loyalty. Listy said Romelia's name and thought hopefully that they might meet again in the future. Will called out to Sister Hinori in fright, noticing that something had happened to her and she only moaned weakly in response. He was surprised that the enemy had managed to catch her so easily and decided that it was necessary to save Hinori first. Meanwhile, another character wondered who he was and pointed out that if it was a deterrent magic, it required a lot of power. Then there was an explanation about the use of spiritual communication, which caused an unexpected reaction and confusion among those present. He explained that he had an innate magic created to restrain spirits, and added that it was particularly effective against them. He clarified that if the spirit is too strong, you can lose consciousness and fall, and then noticed that the captive has the spirit of the beast, as he expected. He shouted that the man was infuriating him, showing all the anger and annoyance that had accumulated during this time. The hooded man replied that he couldn't let them go, as it was his employer's wish. He then added that until the goal was achieved, they would have some fun by contacting Wilm. He attacked fiercely, but he heard a mocking shout to stop being an idiot, and realized that the blows were not reaching the target. The opponent laughed, and noticed that he really couldn't even move, emphasizing the complete advantage over him. He said that when Julius told him everything, he was skeptical, but now he decided to seize the moment. He then added that the summoner couldn't get any closer and asked why she wouldn't give up and become his. The girl in anger shouted that her summoner was only William and called the opponent just a man and just a jerk. In response, he grinned and said that he still wanted her, no matter how he had to get her, and added that he would not accept rejection. The opponent showed her the ring and told her to watch. Then he explained that it was a legacy from the ancient era of the sorcerer civilization, the ring that binds spirits. He explained that this ring turns spirits and spirit creatures into slaves, a magical tool that forces them to obey. Although the substances from which it is made and the production methods are unknown, its effect exceeds expectations. Even the great spirit Sandra is powerless before this artifact. He told Hinori-chan that she was now his thing. Meanwhile, the opponent was challenged in battle, and seeing his efforts, they mockingly asked if he was already tired. The opponent mockingly told him to take his time, because William's spirit would soon be stolen. The latter, realizing the situation, only thought that there was nothing to be done about it. The opponent told Hinori that she should become his. He was showing her a magic tool and trying to make her submit. Hinori declared that she would never listen to anyone other than Wilma. She added that she would resist until the end, until the artifact breaks. Hinori called Wilma and asked if he could hear her. He said he could hear it. The girl admitted that she doesn't think she can get close to him. Wilm noticed that they were in a rather dangerous situation. Wilm told Hinori to listen to him. He noted that now is not the time to think about strategy, so we need to act decisively. He then asked Hinori to do what he said and stressed that delay was unacceptable. He himself continued to fight, striking at the enemy. Hinori pondered his words, wondering if it would really help. She admitted that she might feel uncomfortable in this situation, but she knew that she had no choice. He noticed that Wilm was still calm, but he wasn't going to give up. After that, he added that he feels it will be a lot of fun ahead. The guy was breathing heavily, barely able to keep his feet, but he continued to look at the opponent with determination. The hooded man stood quietly, watching him, showing no signs of fatigue. The hero cast a spell, addressing the Lord of the Burning Sky, and said that he would search and find the soul that dwells in his body. The opponent was surprised that he was going to summon another spirit, and added with annoyance that it was a pity that this stubborn man did not even think of giving up. He told Julius not to worry, and added that he could bind the other spirit as well. At this time, the others asked in surprise what was going on and exclaimed in bewilderment what exactly they had witnessed. Julius shouted in surprise, not understanding what was happening, and the hooded man happily watched as William raised his hands and summoned the power that lit up everything around him. Everyone around them was startled as William gathered all his strength and stood in front of the opponents. His body began to glow, and the magical energy enveloped him, causing shock and bewilderment to those around him. Everyone froze in amazement when William appeared before them in a new form. His enemy muttered in disbelief that a fusion had occurred. One of the enemies was surprised and said that he definitely did not expect this. He noted that William had an ace up his sleeve. Julius shouted in frustration that it was impossible. He added that just a little bit more and everything could have turned out differently. Julius couldn't believe that William had managed to merge with the spirit. He furiously exclaimed that the spirit would be his. William shouted indignantly, asking if the opponent was mocking him. He said that he dared to treat Hinori like a thing and demanded if he was willing to take responsibility. The other characters were discussing what was happening in disbelief. One of them exclaimed that something was obviously wrong with Julius. Another wondered how he was able to pull this off if he had merged with the beast spirit. William said there was a spiritual connection between them. He explained that the foundation is himself, and therefore the opponent's magic won't work here. He added that all this is useless, because even if they merged, it will not change anything. The opponents, watching what was happening, confusedly admitted their defeat. One of them sighed and said he gave up. The young man exclaimed in despair that he couldn't even use Sangara, and cursed. He called her out and told her to buy him some time. Son, Ah replied that she understood, and that she would stop the experiment for a while. He shouted at her to stop the enemy, even at the cost of her life. She tried to calm him down by telling him that if she could escape, she would be fine. The enemy said with satisfaction that this was excellent, and ordered that his attention be attracted. After that, he took out something, and the other character exclaimed in surprise, not understanding what was going on. The opponent indignantly stated that he thought that he would just be released. Junius and Sandara screamed, asking what he was doing, and begged for help. One of the heroes announced that he was canceling the contract. Another exclaimed that he didn't agree to this, because he promised to give the girl only after receiving the spirit of the beast. However, he was told that since the contract was terminated, Sandra was now being taken away. One character stated that the other can't do anything without their consent. He explained that if one of the parties wants to terminate the contract, then you only need to apply a little more force than when it was concluded. In the end, he said that he was no longer involved with Sandra. The man was indignant that he was betrayed, but the other replied that there was no one to betray. He said that the other person had messed up everything, and so he was taking Sandra as compensation. He reminded that it was his opponent who tried to betray him and escape, and not vice versa. The hero asked if his opponents were finished. He was clearly annoyed and declared that he would burn the enemy so that not even ashes would remain. Another character was terrified and begged to wait and stop. He tried to justify himself and compared what was happening to what was done to Sandra earlier. The character coldly told the enemy that if he dared to hurt his sister Hinori or touch his friends, he would die. He added that the enemy will regret everything that he did. The opponent shouted in frustration to be stopped, but the hero looked at him coldly and resolutely, not intending to stop. After the violent attack, which was accompanied by a flash and destructive force, one of the participants said that he did not know what kind of contract they had, and the other only noted that, well, since that was the case, everything became clear. The hero asked if the interlocutor would let the child go, because she should be free. However, in response, he heard that the girl was the target of the contract. After that, the other noted that they had already talked for quite a long time and suggested that they end the conversation. In response, it was said that in this case, everything will be decided right now. William summoned a fiery feather that flashed right in front of the opponent. His opponent cried out in surprise. The flames spread all around. The situation has become threatening. The hooded man said not to worry. He was holding Sonara in his arms. His words were calm. The girl remained unconscious. The hero added that the flame obeys only him. The man explained that it burns only what he orders. The main character told the enemy that he should take more care of himself than others. The hooded man held the girl in his arms and watched the scene. The answer was an expletive of annoyance. Then, the opponent abruptly leaped forward, attacking. The hooded man was thrown back and coughed. His body buckled from the impact, and he struggled to hold the little girl in his arms. The girl with the long hair asked me not to touch her again. She looked weak, but determined at this moment. He watched in amazement and thought that it might be a spirit. The hooded man noted with relief that the girl had returned, and called her his salvation, emphasizing the timeliness. He added that she was doing great, and praised her for her determination in such a dangerous moment. The girl smiled and asked about the words of salvation with a slight irony, as if testing the seriousness of his statement. The guy thanks the girl for her help and notes that they have a new friend. He offers to move it, and the girl happily agrees, ready to help in this matter. She declares that since this is a new friend, she will make every effort for him. With a smile and determination, she emphasizes her willingness to support and protect loved ones. The character cast a spell that he called mind blinding, and his words filled the space with a flash of light. There was a commotion outside, and a huge winged creature flew over the treetops, causing the man to raise his head. The character was surprised to notice the magic that appeared and did not understand its source, assuming that it was related to the enemy. The man called out to Amy, and the hooded man told her to take advantage of the moment, to which the girl agreed. The main character shouted at Hisera to get everyone out of here immediately, her surprised reaction coming in response. He heard a voice that sounded familiar and thought of Hinori, while also assuming that something had happened to Wilm. The girl gave the command to move forward, her words directed at the dragon, who was ready to act on her orders. The dragon charged forward into the air, rising with her, and the protagonist, noticing this, cursed in annoyance. The main character uses a spell, first says dispel, to neutralize the enemy's magic, then adds powerful explosion. Travoy looked around in the forest and noticed that he could not sense the magical power of the opponents. He wondered if they had escaped. The girl called out to Yuri, and the hooded man said, "So." The girl said that Nathan and Meaton were killed, and he did it. The hooded man said he understood. The hooded man explained that they had to resort to using spirits to save themselves, and added that the spirits didn't mind. Then she thanked him, and the man asked in surprise. Yai asked what had happened. The girl noticed that he looked happy. The hooded man said Wilm was more interesting than he thought. The girl added that she would never have thought that this was possible, because he is really interesting. The hooded man reminded her that he had already mentioned that Wilm had fused with the spirit and asked how Yomi understood this. The girl said she wanted to merge. The hooded man offered to give it a try when they got back. She asked her what she was imagining and added that she was a pervert. The man reacted calmly and said, "Well, they said he was a little tired." The man with the long hair told Wilm that he hoped to see them again. The guy thanked her for the invitation and said that he was grateful to Her Highness for the honor of being here and for her unusual kindness. The sharp-eared girl and the others present exclaimed in surprise, not hiding their confusion. The guy asked where they were going, and the companion reminded about the invitation of the princess and the request to accompany him. He admitted that he had behaved like an amateur at the time and noted that he still had a lot to learn. The girl said that she did not forgive the attempted robbery and mentioned poor Hinori, linking everything to the coup. The guy noticed the attractiveness of Hinori's sister and admitted that he never regretted what he did. The hero heard the words about recklessness and noticed that after saving the kingdom, power and strength were not enough. He asked if even now the kingdom didn't have the strength to deal with the impending danger and difficulties. Princess Remelia appeared in front of them, and the hero thanked her for the honor, expressing respect and reverence. His companion replied calmly, reminding him not to over-exaggerate the significance of his words and actions. The hero offered to get straight to the point and asked why he was called. The princess replied that it is possible to address her without formalities and feel more free. She added that she has a serious conversation with him. However, she offered to go into the room because the corridor is too open and the conversation is too personal. The princess began the conversation with gratitude, noting that she was able to see the evil intentions and take action. She wanted to thank the hero and apologize because he saved her country. The hero replied that thanks and apologies are enough, but it is better to immediately tell the reason for the meeting. Then she confessed that she wanted to talk about Listy. The princess said that Listy had made a terrible mistake. She recognized that she could trust him because he was always honest and would never go against her. She added that he was in danger and nothing could be done. It seems to her that he was brainwashed, so he went against the state. She confessed that she wanted to save him from a terrible fate. The princess asked to help Listy regain his sanity and save him, because the kingdom will not spare. She insisted that Wilm should know how to cure him. The hero replied that he didn't know how to save Listy. He said it calmly, but doubtfully. The hero explained that if Listy is still in a reckless state, then he was put into deep hypnosis. He added that the brainwashing technique involves strong hypnosis, which blocks consciousness and physical activity. Her companion remembered that Listy's speech had changed and become strange. She realized that he was indeed being held captive and brainwashed. The hero noted that the brain continues to function, despite the heavy load. The hero said that he can't promise anything, but will try to unlock Listy's memory. He noted that there is a chance that he will get out of hypnosis and return to normal life. The princess expressed her faith in him and said that he would be able to save Listy. Then she thanked Wilm for his willingness to help. She suddenly changed the subject and asked if they had already decided where they were going to stay for the night. The princess said that she would be very happy if they could stay in the kingdom. The hero answered her with a short word of thanks. He then remarked that it would be a good idea to head back to the village as soon as possible.